Welcome, everyone. It is 7 p.m., so we're going to get started. So if everyone could please stand to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, that would be great.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Should I read the note? Just as a reminder?
You can,
Okay.
if you want to. Sure, you can.
Okay, so just for everyone at home, this meeting will be in person. So we do not have a Zoom option this evening, but we are live on Area 58, and there will be a recording up on YouTube by Area 58 as well. So we are going to get started today. Do we have someone from the EAPC?
Tom's here, I think.
Tom is here, great.
First up tonight, huh? That's all right, that's all right. So just, I'll be brief, as it is June finally, like we're here. So officially, I want to congratulate our graduating seniors and wish them well on their path, whatever they choose to do. I'd also like to publicly, congratulate our retirees. I know we're having a party tomorrow, but I just wanted to put that out there, congratulate them on their impacts they've had in the school system and all the students' lives. As it may not feel like summer this week, but as last week we kind of had a quick taste of it. I hope everybody gets a chance to step away for a little bit, enjoy some time off. I believe I know I will, and get ready to get back in the fall. But before that, definitely enjoy the summertime. So I will see you guys. Thank you.
Great, that's great.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Nice to see you in person. Okay, so next, if we could have our student ambassadors please come up from Carver Elementary School. Thank you all for being here. Here.
Hi, I'm Tyler Patton.
I'm Emily Nista.
I'm Mallory Doyle.
We are student ambassadors from the Carver Elementary School, and we want to share some of our great activities happening at our school.
There have been several field trips so far in 5th grade. We went to Skull Island and Plymouth, Patuxent.
Kindergarten went to Ward's Berry Farm.
4th graders went to the Zacterian Theater. 3rd grade did a tour of Carver and went to the police station, fire station, and other town buildings. Other grades went to the zoo this week.
I heard while they were at the fire station there was a brush fire, and the students got to see the fire engine pull out of the station.
That's exciting. 4th grade students learned about marine science with the Delilah and the whale presentation. There's a giant inflatable whale in our gym that students actually got to go inside it.
Can you believe they got to do that? I wish I got to do that when I was in 4th grade.
What was your favorite part of the arts and culture night? I love the food trucks, and I ate like 3 churros. I hope the 2nd graders perform with movements and the chorus performed too. Artwork was displayed throughout the hallways in all different grades. There were games from different cultures like hopscotch from Brazil and different dances from other countries.
There was an African drummer and dancer too. It was easy to learn because he taught the steps in small parts.
Do you want to demonstrate the dance?
I'll pass, but thank you.
Students stayed after school to ride bikes and learn about bike safety.
Students rode bikes around the cranberry bogs and the new vine path.
So cool.
The band and chorus performed during the school assembly and in the evening for our spring concert.
I played trumpet and we played a song called Dragons in the Mist. Chorus sang a lot of songs including Warm Up, Sylvie, and Oya. Here's a small sample.
Have you ever been down the water spout to the very bottom of the water system? There you'll find a little alligator who goes by the name of Alfred. He's mine. I lost him. I held him down the water spout, and now I'm feeling lonely 'cause he's gone. I miss him.
Great job.
I'm not sure who our next presentation is, but we are expecting them to sing. Oh, Tammy, that's you and Naomi, I think.
We're ready. Yeah.
Music played throughout the halls, and it was one of my favorite songs, like I'm on top of the world.
Seniors walked through the halls in their graduation gowns and waved, high-fived students, and hugged their old teachers and siblings.
Kids made signs to cheer on the seniors.
They looked so much taller than I expected them to. Congratulations, graduates.
Jam Fest not only had freeze-dried candy, which was absolutely delicious, they also had cotton candy, which was delicious.
Ukulele Cup performed in the chorus with over 100 students in each group.
There were vendors including alpacas and goats.
There were yard games too on the field.
Don't forget about the food trucks.
I had a lot of fried dough.
Italian ice was there too. It was perfect because it was a hot afternoon. There was a raffle and people won prizes. Mr. Alea and Mrs. Cram got pied in the face. It was a lot of fun. This year had been a great year. I've made so many memories in elementary school. I love in Miss Dracio's class when she lets me and Emily do the dance at the end of the day. We're called the dancing duo.
I like going to Plymouth Pawtuxet a lot and talking to pilgrims.
I loved the food trucks at Jam Fest and Alton Cultural Night.
When I think back to my elementary school years, one of my favorite memories was from second grade was the Polar Express thing.
I liked being Groovy Cat in the musical. I even got to jump out of a trash can. I like when Miss Smith taught us the Slinky Sevens. All together now. 7, 14, 21, 28, and 35, 42, and 49. Sing them every morning. How can you learn the Slinky Sevens? How can you learn the Slinky Sevens? How can you learn the Slinky Sevens? Sing them every morning. Have a great evening. And remember, above all,
Be kind.
Woo!
Thank you very much.
That was incredible. Anyone that would like to sing before us is more than welcome to. That was so great. Thank you so much for sharing your stories from all the amazing things that happen at Carver Elementary School. Okay, so now that brings us to comments from the general public. So if there's anyone here that would like to speak, you are welcome to come up to the table where the microphone is, and you'll be recognized, and everyone will have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, my name
Hello.
is Mary Dormer, 162 Plymouth Street. Over the weekend, I had put out on the Carver Class of 2030 a request for people to email Scott about the additional nurse at the high school leaving. I was unaware, although I do pay attention to what's going on in town, that her position was paid for by COVID monies. Kelly had explained it on Facebook, and I spoke with Scott this morning, but I am here today to I'm just going to reiterate what I said. I think it's really important that we have a second nurse in the middle high school, and if you guys can intervene in any way, I would ask you to do so. I know that it's pre-COVID money, and I know that I know that it was COVID money and that we're supposed to go back to pre-COVID staffing, but we're not going back to a pre-COVID life. A lot of the children that are coming into the high school now, their life stopped in second grade, and a lot of them are struggling mentally. And with a lot of the different, I looked on the minutes from the February 7th, the adjustment counselor is leaving, the interventionalist, all of these people identify when a child is struggling. And if we take that away, at least we'll have a nurse who would be able to identify. We'll have 2 nurses who would be able to identify if a child is struggling, if a child is in need, and if they can recommend to a parent that they may need to seek services outside of the school. So I would ask that we try and find whatever money that we can to keep the nurses, the 2 nurses in both the elementary school and the middle high school. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to participate in public comment? I just want to remind everyone that this is the only opportunity that members of the public have to speak. So if there's anything that you'd like to say, that you're in support of, or a concern that you'd like to raise, now is the time to do so. Hello.
How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Good, thanks. My name's Angela. Do I have to say, like, what my address?
Your name is fine.
Angela Moore.
Oh, thank you.
162 High Street. I'm here to talk about the grade level participation in sports at Carver Middle High School. I'm advocating for all young athletes that put the work in to strive to be their best at their sport, but we have a rule in place at our school that holds our young athletes back and are unable to participate at a high level even though they are capable. Years ago, 7 through 12 could participate in Carver High School sports. Many of those athletes went on to complete the college level, myself included. We should be giving our young athletes the same opportunity. I have heard the saying a couple times recently, if you do for one, you must do for all. Right now, 7th graders are able to participate only if our numbers are low. So why not change the grade for 7th graders to participate in all levels except for football and boys hockey due to the physicality? And 8th graders make whatever their athletic levels land them according to the coaches. For example, if an 8th grader can compete at the varsity level, that is the team they make. Many surrounding towns have changed this rule as well. Programs Duxbury, Wareham, Mashpee, East Bridgewater, West Bridgewater, Taunton, a large school, lets 8th graders participate at any level as their athletic ability proves to their coaches. I'm sure there's more schools. For academics, when a student in a lower grade level is excelling in a class or a grade, the school doesn't make them stay in the course or grade level. They either skip a grade or take honors classes or high school courses. I know right now that there is a 7th grader taking 8th grade classes, 8th graders taking honors classes, and high schoolers taking college courses. So in athletics, why do we hold them back just because of their grade level? If they can excel and they meet the academic requirement, they should be able to play at any level that they earn. Sports is about learning how to work hard and earn your position, not just handed to you because you're in a higher grade level. It also helps with life lessons. Sometimes you need to be pushed and need failures to achieve your goals. Failure is helpful for motivation. Those younger kids will help push those upperclassmen to do better. Also, with the COVID and everything, if they're allowed to participate early, maybe that will help them. They're emotionally being able to start play their sport sooner. I just think that it would be beneficial for all students to be able to participate at a lower level. And 8th graders who work really hard can be able to compete at that higher level as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in the auditorium that would like to speak? Again, just to be clear, now's the only time that the public is able to make a comment. Okay, seeing no movement to the microphone, we will move on to the approval of minutes. I do want to bring to everyone's attention that we are revisiting the minutes for April 24th, 2023, because there was a typo in the minutes that was brought to our attention. So we are voting to reapprove those as they've been revised. So we'll also be approving the minutes from the May 15th, 2023 open session school committee meeting.
I move that we approve the April 24th, 2023 open session minutes that have been revised for correction and the May 15th, 2023 open session minutes.
I second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That brings us to Communications, which, are there any no communications
No
tonight,
specific
right?
communications this evening.
Okay, so then that will bring us right to reports from the superintendent and personnel updates.
Okay, our personnel movement since last time we met. New hires, Tim Murphy as a physical education teacher at the middle high school for the beginning of next school year. Nathan Miller as a math teacher at Carver Middle High School for next school year. Stephen Kane as a physical education teacher at Carver Middle High School for next school year. We have had a couple retirements since we last met. So Tom McLean as science teacher, I'll get it right, Spanish teacher, and foreign language department chair has announced his retirement. As the health aide and Secretary Lorraine Leahy from the middle high school health office. And a custodian, Rob Burton, has also announced his retirement. His retirement would be effective 9/1/2023. And we've had one resignation, Joshua Amaralt as a custodian at the middle high school.
Thank you. That brings us to the DEI presentation with Tammy Johnson and Dr. Naomi Stahl.
I'd just like to let everybody know that we're actually putting the next two items together, the DEI presentation and the It's Get Better Grant project grant. So Naomi and Tammy are going to speak about the grant within their DEI presentation.
Great, thank you very much.
Hey.
Welcome.
I feel like I've been to so many of these meetings, it's like a radio call-in show, and I'm like, long time listener, first time caller. Thanks for having us, though. So, hi, everyone. I think Mr. Neef introduced us. I'm Naomi Stahl. This is Tammy Johnson. And thank you for allowing us to share the work of the DEI committee tonight. I just want to begin with our vision. Next slide, please. So the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee engages all stakeholders of the Carver Public Schools to design and implement strategies that value diversity and ensure equity. The committee aspires to do this through courageous conversations and actions which support a culturally inclusive community in changing global society. So this meant that together we had open and respectful exchanges and listened to each other. And we always kept the best interest of our students first.
Okay, so objectives. Some of the objectives that we've had for this year. First of all, I actually wanted to state that the members of the committee include the superintendent, 2 school committee members, educators, teachers, and ESPs, community members, parents, and students. This year, we focused on 3 objectives: creating immersive experiences, fostering a sense of belonging for our students, and diversifying our facility, faculty and staff.
So I feel like we accomplished so much this year, but here's a list of all the wonderful things that we've done. We received and put into action the GSA grant and the DESE grant, and many members participated in an important book discussion. We worked together to present the Arts and Culture Night at the elementary school, and our members initiated an important change to our website. And we began the preliminary steps to initiate One Book, One School. And Tammy's going to give us some of the details of our first few initiatives.
So starting off with the GSA grant, we have an update because this was accepted last year, but we continued this year to spend the $10,000. So some of the things that we've done are clearer signs on bathroom doors. We've also done random acts of kindness. All right, so it was a day hosted by the students, and as you can see, there's like stickers, magnets. Students actually did a wheel where they could spin and get different kind of like swag, and it was a really positive day for our students. And we also are in the process of creating a new mural in the hallway with different color hearts, and here's the beginning of it.
And that mural's down by the entrance to the middle school gym.
Correct.
So that hallway at the middle school gym entrance is
Yeah.
where that mural's going.
And so much more. We've collaborated with Halifax, curtains for the stalls in the locker room, field trip to Weymouth, purchased books, and started a pen pal program with another school. So all of this is under the umbrella. So the next slide, I just wanted to kind of like go back to why we actually do this. In the DESE has an act relative to gender identity, Chapter 199 of the Acts of 2011, which became effective in July 2012. So this is a lot wordy, a lot of words saying basically this is some of the things that fulfill this requirement of the state. And next, DESE. So Grant, we've had the opportunity to work together as a team. Some of our members are Scott Neef, the superintendent, Special Education Director Melissa Leary, Chief Operations and Finance Officer Ron Griffin, Carver Elementary School teacher Christine Thomas, and myself. Yeah. We met from November to June. During the day, we had about once a month, we've met to work with other districts across the state. We worked as a team to develop strategies improving hiring and retentions of staff, specifically diverse staff. This year, one of the accomplishments that we've had is developing an entrance and exit survey, and then we have a follow-up meeting next week. And next, we have the book discussion. So we met a bunch of educators from the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee, met from October through March. We developed strategies for the classroom. We implemented them in the classroom, came back, discussed them with how they went with each other. And some of the next steps that we talked about at our last meeting was possibly having Cornelius Minor, the author of the book, come and do some professional development.
Okay, thanks for the recap, Tammy. That was an amazing start and a great focus for the grants. Our next stop is, just a trip around the world. So, it's metaphorically speaking. We used visual arts, technology, food, music, dance, and games. So for the visual arts, students in grades K through 5 shared creations led by Candy Stansfield, our art teacher. The kids shared sculptures and masks, yarn creations, painted works, and the result was a colorful feast for the eyes. Mrs. Ken offered virtual trips around the world, and Mr. Thompson shared multicultural stories in the library. And if you were feeling hungry, you could grab some food from the food trucks outside. And then Ms. Cramp led the second grade students and our chorus in song. Mr. Marsh and Mr. Allaire welcomed all the dancers in the gym with a special guest. And Mrs. Tobin led a variety of games indoors and outdoors. So overall, it was a collaborative effort that made for a successful evening. Do we have time? Yes, no, skip. Yeah.
On Thursday, May 18th, Carver Elementary School hosted its first Arts and Culture Night for community members to enjoy a night filled with art, music, dancing, culture, and food trucks. A sensory student art walk was held for those who experienced sensory overload in large groups. During the sensory walk, families got to walk around the school and view student artwork. This event was a group effort. Everyone pitched in, including the Allied Arts team at the elementary school, the Safe and Supportive Committee, and the Diversity Committee. There was so much to do at this event. You could do artwork, attendees had the option to sign up for a 20-minute African dance workshop led by expert Abu Sar. Sar, a master teacher of djembe dances from Senegal, taught students and families different dance moves and traditional drums. Upstairs in the book collection, Native American stories were read, while in technology, there was a virtual travel experience with reality goggles, as well as a Google Translate station. There was also a cultural and
I did not hear you.
In addition to all these activities, second grade students in each class participated in 15-minute concerts called Around the World that included each student having an opportunity to sing, sign, or play an instrument. Before the performance, students also read fun facts about different countries, from Morocco to Brazil to France and Israel.
Arts and
Culture Night. We're excited to perform for you. We have been learning songs around the world. It's important to learn about new cultures and imagine learning to use this. I love traveling to different places. I can't wait to travel on the plane. Would you like to come with us? Grab your passport and let's go. Our first stop is Morocco in Africa.
Throughout the night,
At the end, too.
the diversity, equity, and inclusion committee led a scavenger hunt for attendees to travel from project area to project area that represented different continents. Those who visited each continent got a stamp, and those who visited every continent around the world received a passport photo. Local Larry's, Mom on the Go, and Plymouth Party food trucks also helped us celebrate this night. The night concluded with 4th and 5th grade chorus performing songs like Ashlo Shah, a Hebrew text, Oye, a Spanish text, and Aramzamzam, a Moroccan folk song. Carver Elementary School was so excited to host a community event for students and families that celebrated all different cultures that make up our community and beyond. We had a great turnout of 800 families and students, and we couldn't be more grateful to everyone who has supported and helped us put this night together. Events like this are a team effort, and it was great to see so many different committees and teachers partner together to celebrate the world's differences. This was the first time Carver Elementary School hosted this event, but the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee hopes this event will happen again in the future.
I mean, wasn't that great?
It was great.
The DEI committee also inspired a small but significant change on the school website. So instead of ELL, which stands for English Language Learners, we'll be using MLL, which stands for Multi-Language Learners. This is important because it represents a deeper level of respect for the strengths and challenges of our students. They are coming to us with a rich background and are in the process of learning the complexities of multiple languages at the same time. The change to MLO recognizes our students have their own identities and are capable people.
That is great.
Thank you. Our final initiative is the One Book, One School. Our Safe and Supportive School Committee came up with the book options, and the elementary school voted on Change Sings by Amanda Gorman. This story inspires children to be the change they wish to see in the world. The message is that changes can be big or small, and even young students can have a positive impact on the world, whether it's through accepting others, keeping our community clean, and helping those in need. With the help of our staff, we will use this book as our thematic inspiration for next year.
Okay, so now next year, plans for next year. We plan on revising and updating our goals and objectives. One of the things that we are going to continue working on, as Naomi said, the One Book, One School. Carver Elementary School has chosen theirs. The Carver Middle High School is in the process of developing a plan to do something similar but more appropriate for that age group. One of the other goals that we've discussed in the committee is to broaden communication specifically within the community, and also to build on our lived experience goal for our students. So we want to really we've tried to come up with a lot of things this year, and there are some things that happened, but we really want to see if we can go further with that goal. So one of the things that I thought of being in a leadership role myself is that Doris Kearns Goodwin wrote the book Team of Rivals about Abraham Lincoln. I don't know if anyone is familiar, but this quote really struck me as the basis of the important work we do specifically as leadership. So good leadership requires you to surround yourself with people of diverse perspectives who can disagree with you without fear of retaliation.
So on behalf of Tammy and myself and the DEI committee, we thank you for your time and for your attention, and we hope to see you at the meetings next year. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy and Naomi. I don't know if there's any questions.
Does anyone have any questions?
Or comments?
Thank you both very much for
Yes, for
coming
coming.
and for putting this presentation together. I think it's wonderful. I mean, I know a lot of us have attended some of these events, but for people in the community that maybe didn't have the opportunity, maybe next year they'll take advantage of that.
And we'll see you there.
And get a little bit more involved. So thank you for sharing this with us and with the community at large. We appreciate the effort.
I just want to say that I have thoroughly loved being a part of the EI committee this last year, and I'm looking forward to next year. And I'm looking forward to next year. I think it's amazing that we have such a focus to make sure all of our students feel included and welcome in school. And I know that, you know, back 29 years ago when I was at Carver, we could have used something like this. So it's amazing that we're have such wonderful people working to make sure kids know that they have a safe place to come to every day. So thank you.
That is great.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Tammy. Thanks, Naomi.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that brings us to school improvement plans.
Yep, so happy to have Christine and Ruby here with us. So Ruby go first. Ruby Meis is principal of Carver Elementary School to present the elementary school improvement plan for next year.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. All right, so both of those presentations, well, everything that has taken place before me, that's just been really wonderful. So this is going to be, hopefully, I'm going to try to make it exciting, but here we go. All right, so each year, the elementary and the middle high school works to put together their school improvement plan. I wanted to start by thanking the school council, because the Carver Elementary School, we have a council that is a representative group of parents, teachers, and administrators, and the goal of the council, which meets monthly, is to review and revise our school improvement plan. And we do that through our monthly meetings and ongoing discussions. So I'd like to just take a moment to thank some of those, actually all of those members. So Danielle Hall-Sawiski, one of our parents, Ryan Reset, Sharon King, and Shay Thompson. Those are parents, and Shay Thompson is one of our community members. Teachers on the council are Morgan Brown, Anne Marie Blackton, Pat Tobin, and other members that join us are Dr. Pinella and Dr. Stahl. And I also wanted to give a huge shout out to Pauline Lopez, who is one of our admin assistants and helps us with meeting reminders and helping to keep us organized. All right, so Mr. Neef will help me as we slide through, but the first initiative that we want to just emphasize falls under safe and supportive schools. So I've talked at the last couple of years a lot about social emotional learning. So if you look at 1.1, what we're going to continue to do is increase competencies among students. We use CASEL competencies to help both teachers and counselors and all of the staff to support the students. So some of these items here we've carried over from previous years. I'm going to go on to the next one, which is 1.2, that is continue to strengthen our safety protocols. And I've talked about these also in the last couple of years. But the safety protocols are basically things like, fire drills and reunification plans in the event of a intruder. We want to make sure that we continue to work to refine our plans and to ensure that all of our staff are trained. As you know, we've hired new staff over the last couple of years, and it's always important to make sure everyone is up to date and apprised of what our procedures are for whatever the emergency is. I'm going to continue to go down to 1.3. So one of our goals is to continue to build a culture of leadership opportunities for all of our students throughout the school day. And we want to do this through ways that are somewhat maybe basic to do, but yet are really good opportunities for students. So we do this in ways like assigning students roles and responsibilities that don't so much interfere with their entire school day. So at arrival time, at dismissal time, giving students jobs like hallway monitors and bus monitors. These things are really helpful for students to take on leadership roles and continue to just be good students throughout the school day. We also are going to tie into some of the theme of One Book, One School. We're going to be incorporating the school-wide theme into our student-led assemblies. So using Change Sings, we're working on a motto for the year. We just put actually a survey together so that the teachers can vote on that. And what we're going to do is create a new motto. So for the last couple of years, we've had above all, be kind. So next year, we're going to change, and it's going to be something that we voted on as a school, and then we're going to embed that theme throughout the things we do, some of our student-led assemblies. So we're very excited about all of that. We're going to continue to increase positive behavior amongst all of our students, especially at recess, cafeteria, and school bus. So we're seeing lots of strong community building within the classrooms that the teachers are working on through morning meeting, responsive classroom, getting to know the kids, really building positive relationships. But we've talked here even at school committee for a few times just about really working with the students to improve behavior across all of those other areas, not just the classroom. So we want to utilize media to engage students, so basically recording videos of good behavior with some of our own students, just to really get them excited and model after each other. We know we really have to continue to directly teach the students to make good choices and the value of making good choices and applying them across all settings. So under Safe and Supportive Schools, those are just some things I wanted to highlight that we're very excited about. Then when we go on to the indicator 2 under community engagement, we're going to continue to build on our partnerships that we've had through Early Childhood Council and other organizations. Well, one of the things, if you go to 2.2, that we've added here is we've received some feedback from our families. So our Safe and Supportive Schools committee, which is comprised of teachers, paraprofessionals, parents, have been putting together a family survey, and you've seen this over the last probably 4 or 5 years. We just sent it out about a month ago, and we received some good feedback about a few things. One of them we've incorporated in here. What we're hearing from our families is we really need to do a better job of disseminating information about things like, how the school operates. So we're going to make sure we print out our student handbook. We haven't printed it out in a few years. We're going to make sure we print it out, have it available, and we're going to make sure that we have more information in our monthly newsletter. Things like sometimes there's confusion or just uncertainty about, all right, who do I contact if there's a problem on the school bus for my first grader versus for my fourth grader? Or who do I contact if there's an issue with the school bus driver? So there are different sort of procedures of who to contact, and we want to really make that clear through regular communication. And we've also heard that it's not that easy for some folks to just send an email to a classroom teacher or to myself or to Dr. Pinella, for example. So we want to make sure that we make that information very clear and accessible for parents, even if it's, I don't know, a magnet or something that we hang or send to parents at the beginning of the year with contact information. So that's one of our goals, to improve our communication with families. We also want to add something that we're very excited about. We've had move-up day for our students for the last couple of years, but it's not a move-up day in the way where a student really knows who their teacher is. They don't really know their teacher till the last day of school when you get your report card and the teacher's name is on on the report card. So while we've had move-up day, the children go to the next grade level wing and visit and spend time in maybe one class or all the classrooms. But for next year, we'd really like to accelerate our plan a little bit more so that the students will know who their teacher is by maybe a week before school gets out, and actually on the last day of school go to meet their teacher. So we're going to need to work a little bit on that, but we feel like that's another feature that we really want to add, and that's based on some of the feedback we've heard from families. All right, so why don't we go ahead and move to enhancing teaching and learning. So one of the things that's exciting here for us is we've figured out a way to implement common planning time for our classroom teachers, so it's really exciting. We've been looking at this for a while, and we are going to be able to do a 30-minute block, or provide a 30-minute block once every 7 days for grade level teachers to meet regularly with instructional coaches and admin to really look closely at student data. So it's an additional time, like I said, once every 7 days, where we really can focus on data-informed decisions, adjusting practices, looking at differentiation, and improving the use of differentiation really through our district curriculum accommodation plan. So that's something very exciting that I wanted to share. And then we're going to continue our NIAC accreditation process. So most of you know we're accredited in pre-K and kindergarten through the National Association of Early Childhood Education. And that's basically a yearly process of maintaining a series of benchmarks and standards. And we also are required to continue providing training to our ESPs, who are kindergarten and pre-K paraprofessionals. And then I'm going to go ahead and jump to number 4. So here we are going to continue to encourage strategic use of data. So we're just being really mindful of how we use our resources at the elementary school. One of the things that we'd like to start to work on, and this is mostly investigative, we want to look at what universal preschool could look at Carver Elementary. So using the framework, so across the state of Massachusetts, there are a few cities that are using it's a preschool expansion grant where they received money to have universal preschool. Carver Elementary hasn't received a grant. I don't want to confuse anyone with that, but we want to use the framework, which there's a series of requirements that we can look at and see what it would take to have universal preschool in Carver. Right now we have an integrated preschool. It serves about 65 to 70 students, and it's integrated, which means we serve students who are on IEPs, and then we also make sure to incorporate role models into the program. And it's a short day. It's like a 2.5-hour day for our preschoolers. So that's something that we're curious about and we'd like to look at. And then we're going to continue to use our NWEA assessment tool to help us to make data-informed decisions for our students and our teachers. And we're going to continue to work with our special education department to implement our IEP improvement early adopter plan. And then one of the things that we'd like to work on with our special education department is to partner with Reeds about an exciting opportunity that's just come up the last couple months where they would be able to help to place school counselor interns in schools that are interested. And what it does is it gives us an opportunity to have another school adjustment counselor who's practicing or getting ready to be a licensed school adjustment counselor. And Reed's Collaborative is interested in being the sort of the person who oversees and monitors and helps with that. So it's just something we're interested in.
That's great.
Thank you, Ruby.
You're welcome. So do we have any questions?
Quick question, Ruby. In terms of expanding the preschool, have we had requests from parents for that?
No, we haven't. We've just been talking, Dr. Stahl and Mr. Neef and Mr. Griffin and Dr. Pinella, because, well, we feel like we really want to put in place a program where students are ready for kindergarten. So as you've all experienced this, kindergarten is like the new first grade.
Really?
Well, preschool is becoming like the new kindergarten. And right now, we're not in a position where we're able to offer a longer day for preschoolers, but we know that there are significant benefits in students, the 3- and 4-year-olds, being in school for longer school days. And we're seeing some skills in some of our students that are in longer preschool programs or preschool day programs that they're showing lots of readiness. So we're interested in investigating it. It's actually something we've just been talking about internally.
I think it's a great idea. My daughter was part of the pre-K program and flourished, and I think it's an excellent, excellent opportunity for us in this community. Absolutely. So I'd love to hear more about it when you progress.
Sure. We will continue to investigate it and talk about it and see what we can come up with.
Great.
What it offers is it would be a full day, full year programming. The expansion grant that we've been getting this information from, some of the opportunities are professional development between the school and other community early education programs, and then there's extensive family engagement and family partnerships that are teaching a lot about parenting skills. So those are just some things that we're interested in.
Perfect. Fantastic. I think it's an excellent idea. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I just had a question about when the NWEA and MCAS results are made available to parents.
Good question. So for the NWEA results, we just closed the window. It was just closed actually today, Monday. So you will receive an NWEA report with your child's report card on the last day of school. We'll be printing those reports and sending them home to you. And then in terms of MCAS, the window just closed. I know that the DESE and the MCAS Service Center has been communicating with administrators across the state to make sure that we have completed all our tasks. There's a certain amount of tasks that we have to complete. And then the goal is for MCAS to be able to, for the DESE to be able to get us information quicker. They do have to go through a process of they gather all the information, they communicate with principals, they send out reports that are preliminary reports, and we have a short window of time in the summer where we have to report any discrepancies. It's called a discrepancy report. And so once we submit any responses to any possible discrepancies, they're able to then finalize reports. Then what they do is they notify districts. It's technically, the data is embargoed for a period of time, and then they release it, and it's typically not till October.
Yeah, so the school district usually has the data by the end of August, beginning of September, but it's not publicly released until the state does a public release of all data statewide, which typically tends to be in October, and then that's when the reports go home.
Well,
So-
yeah, that's great. I mean, at least the teachers will have it to help assist them with placement in the classroom.
So once we get it, soon after, we then send the parent guardian reports, and then we're able to start looking closer at the student data ourselves, which is, again, like Mr. Neef said, right around October.
So I just wanted to just mention about the school intern. Is that a definite thing that's starting next year, or is that just on the table?
It is on the table right now, but we've definitely been wanting to do something like this, so we have had 2 meetings with the Reads Collaborative to talk about this.
I love that. That's wonderful. I hope that's something that can be followed through with and started. That's just great, just for us, just having more supports in the school district.
I think it's really beneficial. I mean, we've been fortunate over the last 2 or 3 years to have student counselor interns at our school. Believe it or not, there's a few hoops that you have to jump to make that possible. So if we can do that, I think that that's exciting and that's really helpful, because there's a lot that, because there's a benefit for both parties.
Definitely. Wonderful use of the resources.
And I believe we can be an excellent teaching school for that, so absolutely.
Well, thank you very much for all of that information, and thank you for all of the extra effort that I know you put in, that I think all of us know, looking at these opportunities, always looking at new ideas, always having these conversations to benefit our students and our families. So thank you for sharing that with us.
You're very welcome, and I didn't go over every single thing in the school improvement plan, and that was intentional because I just wanted to highlight a few of the things. But before I go, I did want to say that to all of the families that responded to our family engagement survey, we really appreciate your feedback, and we want you to know we're committed to getting the survey out a little bit earlier next year, because it does really help us to drive our action steps for the following year, and some of those things we're able to incorporate into our school improvement plan. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ruby, and thank you to the Elementary School School Improvement Council.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you.
At this time,
Let's
please welcome
Right.
Principal of Carver Middle High School, Christine Cabral, for the Middle High School Improvement Plan. Just as a little bit of framing, which I probably should have done before Ruby's presentation, the 4 goals Ruby referenced are actually tied back to the district-wide plan, which we call the educational blueprint. Just wanted the community to be aware of that. And so as a district, we've identified 4 key objectives, which is support safe schools, engage the community, enhance teaching and learning, and leverage leadership, policy, and funding. And then the school improvement plans support that district-wide plan and vision. So that's where the 4 key objectives came from for both the elementary school improvement plan and the middle high school school improvement plan. So with that, I'll turn it over to Christine.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Similar to Ruby, I have a school improvement council. We've met over the course of the year, once a month, group of people who volunteer their time to meet with me on evenings prior to school committee meetings. So I would like to thank them for their work. Not only did we review our current school improvement plan and monitor our progress, but then learned how to make adjustments and what our goals were for this next coming school year. So Maria Calvo, Spanish teacher at middle high school. Adam Holmes is a parent. Sydney Sheehan is now a graduate of Carver Middle High School. Tara Stone is a parent, Mary Willette is a special education teacher, and Dylan Young, 11th grade student. So those were the members that served on my school improvement council. I'm going to start by going through the support safe schools column. And this year, we implemented a very new schedule and incorporated a win block, which is what I need in the middle of the day for our students, and provided the students choice for what they wanted to participate in for half an hour. So it was a significant change in our schedule, And in the middle of the year, we did tweak it and make some adjustments for improvement, which we definitely saw improvement in the structure of it. But we're going to continue with the same schedule next year, but we want to continue to just consider revisions to that. And next week, our staff will be receiving a survey, which they can provide administration some feedback on what was good, what concerns they had about the current structure, and maybe suggestions that they have for improvement as we begin next school year. We are going to maintain the student advisory councils that we began this year. There were 3. The school committee had an student advisory council, the athletic department, and I myself had a building-based, just an opportunity to provide student voice. We're going to continue that. I'd like to also, we have a grading committee that I'll talk about when I talk about enhanced teaching and learning, but I'd like to also gather a group of students to get some input on our grading policies and what their experiences in various classrooms as far as grading. We will continue, of course, our safety protocols and our ALICE-based protocols. In fact, myself, over the next 2 days, will be attending 2 full days of ALICE training with Mr. Antel, our high school assistant principal, Lynn Galuzzo, who serves on our crisis team, Mike Santos is another member of our building-based crisis team, so we'll be attending those full-day trainings.
Christine, not to interrupt you, just because we didn't mention it with the elementary school, just so the community knows that.
There's 8 of us in total.
So that Dr. Stahl and Dr. Pinella will also be attending the ALICE training over the next 2 days. So we have administrators at both the elementary school and the middle high school going to a 2-day ALICE training over the next couple of days.
Thank you for adding that.
And then, and again, like Ruby, I'm not going to hit on every bullet, but if you have questions at the end, certainly ask me. But we're going to, with the new administration in the building, and continue to enhance our restorative justice practices and working with our guidance department as well, and implement more the positive behavior interventions and supports. Again, it's a shift in administration, and we want to work together to kind of continue those things. And we're really excited. We had a freshman orientation day last August, which there's been one for a couple of years, but I think the 3 of us worked hard to kind of incorporate some games and activities and make it a really festive scavenger hunt day, and make our 9th graders feel like, even though they're in this building for 7 years, that they are moving on to high school. So we really kind of want to celebrate the end of middle school, but also make high school a new experience for them. So we're going to continue the 9th grade orientation and kind of build on that from last summer. But in addition to that, we're going to have a first ever 6th grade orientation day.
Ooh,
so we've put the date out there. I apologize, I'm not sure of it right now, but we will be getting information out to our 5th grade families, and we look forward to having fun with the 6th graders and planning some team events for them and some food and building tours and things, and having some of the upperclassmen come and work with the 6th graders for that orientation day. So moving on to engage the community. I'm very proud to say that the teachers have been working hard all year long on establishing our vision of the graduate, and we had our final vote on it in our faculty meeting this afternoon, and it's approved. So we do have a vision of the graduate. I'd love to come back at another meeting and share it with you. But now our work next year is going to be to share that vision with all, our presentations with students and staff and parents, and just make it really a public display of what our vision of our Carver Middle High School graduate looks like. And then again, just to continue our work with businesses in the town and with our parent-teacher organization, and to do things to support the school and working with outside agencies. We are going to continue to promote the Carver Pathways program as well as our project-based learning program. We recently had a Met showcase in the spring that was well attended by businesses and families, and we want to continue to do that. Even our 6th and 7th grade students have displayed their PBL projects and invited their parents in to come and see their project-based learning projects. So we've got a lot of positive feedback on that, and we just want to continue to do that or maybe see more of it. Looking at the enhanced teaching and learning column, again, we're going through the NEAS process, and a lot of our professional development work next year is going to be focused on meeting those 5 priority areas that I spoke about it earlier at a different meeting. But one of those priority areas is to embed our vision of the graduate in our curriculum documents and also come up with a plan as to how we're going to measure student growth toward meeting the qualities that we've identified for our graduates. So starting the week after school gets out, we have many faculty members coming in for professional development time to start that work on updating our curriculum documents, and now they're going to have that document of the vision of the graduate right there next to them so they can kind of see what work we're already doing that develop those qualities and skills. And I mentioned that we have started this year, we've worked at looking at our grading policies, our current grading policies. I have a committee that's worked the second semester this year, and we're going to continue that work. And when we come back to school during the first couple of professional development days, I have some of my department chairs that are going to talk to faculty to say, if you use a point system, if you use a weight system, then look at these numbers. This is what the results are and impact on student grading. So really just with an awareness and education on our grading policies and conversation, we're going to look at that and decide how we can be consistent and equitable in those things. And again, like I said, I want to have a student group that has voice in those discussions over the course of the year as well. Really looking forward to earlier this year, we had a really mini 8th grade exploratory where the 8th graders spent one win period in a classroom from each one of our pathways. So we've designed a schedule next year where our 8th graders' allied arts courses are going to provide them an opportunity to spend a significant amount of time in each one of those pathways. So we're really looking forward to that. Thank you to my guidance department and Mr. Neef for their work in designing that schedule. The TV studio, as far as incorporate new interactive learning, the TV studio, as you've seen through Ms. Calvo's presentation with her class and the help of Mr. Yule, the TV studio is up and running well. We're looking forward to also to see what the greenhouse is going to bring to us next year. And as I mentioned, as far our professional development is really going to be focused on curriculum at the beginning of the year. But we've spent the last few years focused on our strand work with SEL and UDL, PBL pathways. So all of that work is still going to continue. Just it's not going to be our focused professional development time, but wanted to just mention that we're going to continue our work in those areas as well. And I think I'll go on to the leverage leadership policy and funding. Continue to apply the grant money and funding toward our pathways opportunities. Continue our 5-year facility plan and supporting building-based initiatives such as classroom modernization and building improvements. There's lots of building improvements, all of the furniture that's updated in the lobbies, those nice areas, classroom modernization, the English department, special education department, guidance department is going to get some new classroom modernization coming up in the fall. To continue our partnership with the Farm and School program, which has been a great success. And then finally, I'm really excited that they're going to renovate. We're using ARPA funds. We've been approved for ARPA funds, and we're using that to renovate the culinary kitchen. So that will probably be toward the end of the first semester. That might be up and running, or certainly mid-year. So we're really looking forward to that. If you have any questions for me about all this good stuff.
It's so exciting.
It is. There's a lot of great things going on.
Great things.
Mhm.
Anyone?
I was impressed when I went to the Met the other day at that time, and just them walking around with the food. Do you like an hors d'oeuvre? It was just so impressive.
Mhm. Thank you.
Just seeing the different things that the kids are doing on a daily basis. It's wonderful.
I really appreciate the fact that you're going to do a sixth grade orientation. I think that is an amazing idea, and
It'll be fun for us.
It'll be fun, and I think it'll also be beneficial for the kids that are coming in. I know that a lot of them are anxious and not really quite sure what to expect coming into the middle school, and I have had parents who felt like their fifth grader wasn't entirely prepared for like some of the aspects of coming into middle school. So I think that's an amazing idea. I'm so glad that we're doing it.
Thank you. And it's an opportunity, I mean, they've been here, they've come up maybe twice. A lot of kids came with their parents for the parent orientation night. And then we brought them up here on the school bus and that's coming up, that's Thursday.
Oh, good.
Fifth grade
Awesome.
move-up day is Thursday, that they start to come up and get bused, and
Good.
they'll get tours of the building, but it's June. Right? It would be nice for them to come at the end of August.
I agree.
When it's
Yeah,
closer to
completely.
the day they're actually arriving.
When they're going to remember it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I just want to say thank you to you and your administrative team, all the staff and the teachers for all of your hard work.
Thank you.
There are so many positive things that are happening. I mean, in both of our buildings, honestly. I think we're all very happy that, the pandemic experience is behind us, and that we're really able to focus going forward on making, bringing enrichment and expanding programming and building improvements and elevating student voice. So thank you very much for your efforts.
Thanks.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you to Christina and Ruby and the school improvement counselors
Yes.
for both the elementary school and the high school. Great job.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for your hard work. Scott, would it be okay if I just want to ask everyone, would it be okay if we moved up an item on the agenda?
So,
I was thinking, I know that
what the committee would like to do.
We have some members of the rec committee that are waiting for reappointment,
Yes.
who I think might appreciate being moved up on the agenda. So if everyone is okay with that, I would like to move up item D, Recreation Committee appointments, to be our first recommendation from the superintendent.
All right, if that's okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Is everyone in agreement? Do we need to make a motion to do that? No, right?
Nope, you don't need to make a
business.
motion to do that.
Okay, everyone's okay with that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not going to vote because I'm on the rec committee.
Yeah, Jackie is a current member of the rec committee, so in order to avoid the appearance of there being a conflict, she's just going to abstain from the vote. So.
Okay, so at this time, I'd like to invite Mary Ross and Kyle Miller here. They both expressed interest in staying on as members of the Recreation Committee. Mary and Kyle have served on the committee for several years. We would need a motion or vote to reappoint them, to have them maintain their positions within the Recreation Committee. I don't know if Mary and Kyle want to say, don't have to say a few words, but certainly you're welcome to. If you want to talk about your role and work.
Oh.
You're not going to say?
A dance, perhaps?
A dance? Okay. I move to appoint Mary Ross and Carlin Miller to the Carver Recreation Committee.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I would like to say thank you to both of you for volunteering your time. I know that you've served on the rec committee for many years. The programming continues to grow year after year. Community excitement continues to grow. I know that you don't have a very large budget. I know that you work really hard to bring good quality programming to our community. So I just want to say thank you for your efforts and for volunteering your time.
Thank you.
So we appreciate you. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Enjoy the rest of your night. You're welcome to stay. Or not, but thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Okay, that's a good idea, Steph.
All right, so this time, we'll go back to the beginning of the recommendation section. We'd start with the elementary handbook, and I'd like to invite Dr. Jessica Pinella who's going to review some proposed changes to the elementary handbook for next year. Welcome, Dr. Pennell.
Welcome. Hello, everybody.
Quick there.
So the handbook revisions, it was myself, Morgan Brown, a third grade teacher, and Dr. Sharon King, who is an elementary school parent of a pre-K and first grader, who had eyes on the handbook and helped with the revisions. So it starts with some student artwork, as you can see. We have a coyote. It is a student handbook, so the idea is it should reflect some students and have some student voice. And as you scroll down, it has, above all, be kind. The main topics that were revised were electronic devices. Yes. So this was really just updating. So the meat of it is exactly the same. It's, but it just needed some tweaking. So it did remove, together we removed some electronic devices that students wouldn't bring to school anymore. So that's all for that one. The social media piece is a new section that we're adding to the student handbook, and it's not referring to social media that's done at school. It's referring to social media use at home that spills into the school day. This is different than the acceptable technology use policy that is a separate section of the handbook. This would be before it. And it's talking about being partners with families, about educating students in their technology use, and it deals with safety really more than anything. We do have the assistant DA who comes to the school and speaks to students about some very important points and real life situations. And it's outlined with the digital footprint, strangers, that online friends are still strangers, cyberbullying, and the idea of communicating with parents or guardians. So, students should share with parents and guardians what they've downloaded, sites they've visited, and there's a link with some resources for families too about technology use. Destruction of property is the next one. You break it, you buy it. So if students are upset and they break something intentionally, then the family is responsible for paying for it. And the last section is health and wellness. There is a mind-body connection, and we want our students to be healthy and with good nutrition and fitness and social emotional learning skills. We want them to eat well, to hydrate well, not caffeinated drinks, but we do have water filling stations, and just to have a healthy environment for our students in school. And there would be a link also to the Carver Public Schools Wellness Plan that was just updated as well. And those are the changes made. If you have any questions.
Love the artwork. That is so precious.
I actually really like the social media changes.
Yeah.
It's a challenge that I think every parent faces every day, and it's becoming more and more prevalent with the younger ones. What I'd like to see if we could at some point, and I'd be happy to help with it, is maybe a demonstration to parents on how to lock things down for their children on devices, because I think a lot of parents, the kids are way ahead of us sometimes on
Right.
some of that. And just something to think about, nothing.
Okay.
But I think this is great, so I appreciate the hard work on that.
Thank you. And I know, there's the link with some resources, but I can understand the next step too for families and educating parents how to lock that down.
I do this on the daily, so.
Right, and it's over video games, gaming systems and, Facebook Messenger, and there's so many ways that social media looks different. So.
They need to be safe.
Thank
Adding
you.
those resources.
I'll move to approve the elementary handbook changes as proposed this evening.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much, Dr.
Thanks,
Pennell.
Thank
Thank
you.
you to the handbook committee and everyone that worked on bringing the changes forward.
At least I was this much.
This is great. Yay.
All right, ready to move on to middle and high school handbook changes. So please welcome Assistant Principals, Mr. Sean McGinnis and Mr. Dylan Antel. We're going to review the proposed changes. So there's actually a couple topics here that are going to be discussed as part of the middle high school handbook changes related to athletics. And my suggestion to the committee would be that we take these topics up individually instead of looking to approve the handbook changes as a whole or in their entirety. I do think they're each one is worthy of its own discussion and vote. So we'd like to start with those 3 issues related to athletics. Start there. The language is going to be parallel in both handbooks. So I think if we made a motion and either approved or didn't approve the changes, it would be consistent in both handbooks. And then we can kind of go back and look at the other pieces separate from athletics, if that works for the committee.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So we'll start first with, and the 3 issues are just, I'll preface the 3 issues, which is first is athletic eligibility. The current standard is that students must have an overall 70 average in all their courses and cannot fail more than 1 course to be eligible to participate in athletics. And there's a proposal for the committee to consider for a change, and I'll let Mr. Antel and Mr. McGinnis talk about that a little bit. The second issue is 7th grade participation in scholastic athletics. Currently this year we allow 7th graders to participate in sport when needed to maintain a varsity and, if possible, a sub-varsity team. So we want to talk about that issue a little bit. And that actually isn't currently reflected in the handbook. So we feel like whatever policy we decide to do with 7th graders should be reflected in the handbook. And then the third issue is 8th grade participation at the varsity level in interscholastic athletics, which is also minimally addressed in the handbook. So we feel like we want to start with those 3 topics. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. McGinnis and Mr. Antel, and I'll pull up the high school revisions, I guess, let's look at the language.
Thank you very much for having us. I'm Sean McGinnis, high school assistant principal, also filling in for the athletic director. Mr. Antel is here along with me. As we talk about each section that Mr. Neef talked about, I want to make sure that we understand that the information that we've gathered has come through our Student Athlete Advisory Committee. It has been through feedback from different parents, from coaches, and I've also gone to other schools to find out what they use and what best works for them. I want to make sure that we understand we could sit up here and go through lists of who has what and who offers what. I think any list, and I'm a firm data person, the data can always look to however we want them to look. We had to make sure that we find what best fit our school and what best fits our students. And after coming up and having numerous discussions, what we've come up with, I will say, is what the group selected. And the group is definitely our Student Athlete Advisory Committee that thought of that. The first is they would like to present the opportunity to lower the standard eligibility from a current 70, which is a C- average, to be reflected down to a 65. Our Student Athlete Advisory Committee, this was not a landslide vote, I will tell you. We had a lot of discussions about this. We had some students that said they liked the rigor. They looked at other schools that offer standards like ours and standards higher than ours. They've looked at schools that accept the MIAA minimum, which is passing 4 core academic courses, and you cannot have 2 or more failures. And we had a lot of students that did not want to go with that, but they felt as though that helping address the grade point average, the average overall median, would help have more students participate in athletics. So what has come to the recommendation is to change the one part, and I would just like to make sure that I read the first sentence because it's very important for the definition of everybody. Our goal is that all students who participate in extracurricular activities at Carver Middle High School pass all courses each term. To be eligible, a student must maintain a 70% C- average without failing more than 1 class in a previous term. So that is how it reads now, and there is more below, but we're looking to keep all of that. But what was the recommendation to bring to the school committee was for a 65 to be in place of the 70%. At this time, those are the facts that we have. And again, I don't want to sit here and say this school offers this school offers that, because yes, we can come up with schools that would support either side. It's more of what is the best fit for us. So that is what I would like to bring to you, Superintendent Neef, and our school committee.
My question is, I cannot access the data about the ineligible students. I don't have access to it.
Yeah, we don't have access to any of
So,
it.
Sorry about that.
that's okay.
I haven't had access
That's
to
okay.
anything
I'll be
tonight.
glad to review
Yeah.
some of it with you.
So I'm just wondering,
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
what are the numbers, of students that haven't been able to participate? Are they large numbers? Are they small numbers?
So we looked at, first of all, the number of students with 2 or more Fs, okay? And we broke it down over 3 years by each season. We had 1 year where the average of 2 Fs or more was approximately 20. Another year, approximate average was 9. And then this current year, with the approximate average is about 21 again. Students with below 70 average, if we looked at total number of students with 2 Fs, which does not meet standards even with the MIA, we can always go more stringent, but we cannot go less. 18 students in the fall had 2 or more Fs. 18 students in the fall had a below 70 average. So there would be no change for that. It was 26 total Fs, but we had 40 in the winter have a below 70.
And when they're not eligible in the winter, does that mean they can't play in the spring?
No,
Okay.
because there is one more. That's the third. That's
Okay,
the spring there.
okay, that's the
Now, what's not on here is the 4th period.
Yeah.
Because by the time the 4th period grade comes out, that's the end of the year. It doesn't weigh in specifically at this school. I've been at a school that it does, but at this school, it does not weigh into their eligibility in the fall. It's your cumulative grade to make
Okay.
sure you pass for the year,
All right,
which is part of the MIA standard.
Okay.
But now if we look a little bit more in depth, total numbers of student athletes. So we went through and we traced student athletes in the past that have participated in sports that were ineligible. There were 2 this fall that had a below 70 average. If we change it to the below 65, you got to be above a 65, we would still be at 2. We had 2 have Fs. They met the 2 Fs, so they would not have been eligible. In the winter, it was 4 for 4 for 4. In the spring, we would have increased the number of people participating by 1. However, they made it over 65, but they did carry 2 Fs. So that wouldn't have changed it for that. If you look at 21, 22.
So for this year, if we had instituted the policy we're proposing, and our eligibility would have been the same. Would not have changed any students being eligible or not eligible.
Because it
Correct.
sounds like they were failing more than one class.
They were either flooring more than one class. We had one that only filled one class, but everything else did not bring them above the 65. I would not want to describe that why here. It could have been low F, could have been all low 60s with 1 F, but there, I saw the grades and there was a reason for that. If we go back to 21, 22, I think that data is a little skewed. That's more of our COVID time. Okay, and then we go back the year before in 2021, and the data that we're showing shows that we had 3 individuals in the entire year that couldn't participate because of the 70 average. Now remember,
3 different, not the same student?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Each one is individualized. Now, when we look at that one, we looked at the 43. And Mr. Antel, myself, and a couple other people in the offices, we went through the list that, did this person ever play a sport? Did they ever play a sport? Even if they played a year ago, and here we are, or 2 years ago, and here we are this year, we still counted that to, they might have been thinking about participating in a sport. That's how come you see a very different number in the first 2 columns than you do the last one. Does that make sense on that data?
Yes.
Okay. So I apologize all of you not having that, but
No, that's okay. It wasn't your fault. My next question is, what type of safety net do we have for these students? Because I'm curious if there's a learning disability with any of these kids, or that would affect their grades like that, and is there opportunity for tutoring and extra time?
So I can tell you as far as, there's two different answers for this, and I apologize for saying there are two answers.
That's okay.
One is when we look at the MI standards, it does not take into place IEPs, 504s, or any type of learning disability. It is just pure numbers. So that is what we go off of. However, I do know that some of our coaches do offer some study times. A lot of our coaches do track and monitor grades and are trying to help their students. And that's why you rarely, I'm not going to say never, rarely ever see somebody that drops off of a sport. And the fall sports are a little bit in a tough spot because they can't really go and adjust. But the other sports, if they know a student has struggled, I've seen a lot of our coaches go in and try to help them, try to make sure they're signing up for wins with certain teachers, making sure that we're treating everybody equally and getting the help. And at that point, then it's up to the student.
And the only point I'd make on that is obviously students on an individualized plan. So if you're on an IEP or a 504, almost all of your IEPs are pretty much most of them are going to have some sort of academic support built into the plan. 504s, it may vary depending on what the disability is that qualifies a student for the 504, whether there's specific academic support during the school day, but many 504s also contain specific academic support during the school day. So though being on either one of those types of plans is going to naturally provide some more academic support. And then in terms of the fall, students under our policies do have the opportunity to improve their grades by going to summer school. So if a student wasn't eligible, if they find out they're not eligible at the end of when their grades close based on their cumulative grades for the year, they have the opportunity to go to summer school to actually improve their grades to become eligible for the fall.
One more question.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Recently, somebody told me, and I don't know how true this is, so that's why I'm checking with you, that students can still attend practices, like maybe not participate, but attend. Is that true?
So I will give you a caveat again, and I apologize. I think
No,
I'm a
it's
caveat
okay.
genius here. So when trying out for a team, if a student is academically ineligible, if we are going through team reductions, used to be known as cuts, we do not allow a student that is academically ineligible to come in and displace a student that is academically eligible. However, we have had students that we have no cut sports, that we feel as though it's going to be very important for them socially and emotionally to be part of a team that helps build them the character to be able to come to that help. They have stayed. I can think of football this year. We had two individuals that were, one individual that was academically ineligible. Played, did everything. He does not take what they call reps away from kids that are playing, but he's part of the team. He's not just standing there. And he actually became eligible for the last game. And then he was inserted as if he was new to the team. So he doesn't come up and all of a sudden displace everybody that's been there the full season.
But there is the opportunity for them to, in certain sports, for them to somewhat participate without taking the space with someone else and work towards becoming eligible.
So the only other caveat to that is that that's not a policy, it's not required, and we leave it to the discretion of the coach. So the coach actually is allowed to make that decision, obviously working through the administration and having conversations with the family and the administration about that. But in terms of allowing an ineligible student to continue to practice with the team, that it ultimately is a coach's decision. But we generally encourage coaches to do that.
Right. As long as, and we have some rules that we place on them to make sure that they're not a distraction in practice. They're not going saying, I don't care, I'm not going to play, or anything like that. So we put a lot of parameters on them coming out. Anything else?
I would just like to add that I don't see dropping this to a 65 degree as having some adverse effect on our current student athletes, given the data and numbers that you've presented. I'm a firm believer that extracurricular activities keep children out of trouble, and it seems like we have a community and staff and resources that would help these students to improve if they were struggling. And I believe it's also being able to participate in athletics is a motivating factor to doing well in school. So that's my 2 cents.
I have a tendency to agree with that on some level. And when I was a kid, and I did graduate from this high school, we were always required to have grades. You don't get to participate in sports if you don't have grades. However, having talked to a few of the students, having talked to my own family, and also talked to people who have children with special needs, I'm struggling with this in a lot of ways, because I find that a student who is doing poorly in school and doing their best and taking advantage of all the resources and the tools that we have given them to raise their grades and improve, and they're still not doing it, already have issues with self-esteem and feel terrible about school in general. And then to exclude them from playing a sport that they love, I mean, granted, looking at the numbers, it's not a lot of kids. I'm just looking at it from that perspective. A family member of mine just graduated, and she struggled with a personal issue over the last year. Her grades, she went from, all A's to right down. Sometimes it's a blip on the radar, sometimes it's a continuous thing. I really am just, the numbers are low. But we still have a higher standard than the MIAA, correct? It's still a higher standard if we drop it to 65.
Do we know?
And also with the one, only failing one is still higher than MIAA, correct?
You cannot participate if you're failing 2.
We have 2.
Or
Okay.
more.
2 or more.
Which is the MIA standard.
Which is the MIA, okay.
Do we know if these 3 students have made use of all of the opportunities given to them to improve their grades?
I'm tracing down I apologize.
I also have another question.
That might be a really challenging question to answer.
That's why
Because it's getting to specific
That's a hard
students.
thing.
Yeah.
So I'd be a little concerned about getting into discussions about specific students, because the number is small.
Yes.
And people
It's very small.
maybe to identify who those students are. And then also just that general question of have they availed themselves of every opportunity? I think we'd have to really go back to the teachers and have some real discussion about that to give a fair answer to that question.
And another question would be, there's a big difference between a kid who's failing an AP class versus who's failing a regular class. I mean, are they weighted differently at all?
No. And nor does the MIA.
No, they don't do that either, yeah, okay. Makes sense.
And I'm not saying that makes it correct, I'm just saying that's how the standard is written.
Yeah.
So you're using the same apples and apples.
Now, from your perspective, is this something that we could try and change later on if we decided to, or is this?
I think when you look at processes and procedures, you want to have that standard, and whatever you put in place is going to be a challenge to change again.
Okay.
So we have to make sure that if that's what we want to change, we're committed to. If we're not, then that's what we're committed to, and I want to take my personal feeling.
And that's my general thought on that as
Yeah.
well. I think you'd be getting a little bit of tough grounds if you're saying that you're going to evaluate this on a yearly basis. Ultimately, the handbook is reviewed on a yearly basis, but if you start opening the district up to, hey, we're going to review academic eligibility and the standard for it on a yearly basis, I think that the decision the committee makes should be something that we're willing to stay with at least for a period of time, and see how it plays out over a period of time versus just one academic year.
I would really like to see a piece in the policy regarding what Kelly was just talking about. I don't necessarily feel comfortable lowering the standard when there's not as many kids, being affected. But I 100% want to see our children utilizing the resources that we have and making that a part of policy in order to, because just like Kelly was saying, how we don't know necessarily if they're using these resources, if they're not, if they're high achievers and they're just that one year, something happened, or if they're on a plan and they just struggle. So there's a difference between, it's not a blanket. And I just don't feel like we can I think that needs to be a part of it. So that's just my opinion.
Right?
Thank you.
For me, if a student is failing and continuing to fail, then if they're not on an IEP or a 504, and they're not taking advantage of services, then clearly we have more work to do, right? And if they are on an IEP or a 504 and they're still not able to achieve, then I don't feel that we're serving those students to the best of our ability. So I think that responsibility is on us. Well, not us, but our educators, our staff, to really work with those families and get those families to accept the help and do what they can to work with administration and with teachers and guidance to get their students to where they need to be.
It can be social, emotional,
Absolutely.
it can be educational, there's a huge, if we're going to touch this, I want to do it right in my own eyes.
Right. It's like you said, it's complicated. I don't see where there's a blanket solution. But I think this is something that all of us have given an incredible amount of thought to. I know I've had students speak to me, I've had parents speak to me. I think everyone probably has, everyone's very passionate about this. And we all want to see students have opportunities and be able to, find their passions and be successful. It's just a matter of what standard are we going to set for our district.
So based on the conversation, I feel like there's two possible motions that could come out of it. One motion would be to, approve the standard for student athletic eligibility for interscholastic sports, be that student athletes must maintain an overall 65 average and cannot fail more than one course. Or you could make a motion to, which would be a little unusual, but in essence, a motion to maintain the current policy. And then decide if there's a second and a discussion and move forward from there.
I will move that we approve the standard for students' athletic eligibility for interscholastic sports, be that student athletes must maintain a 65 overall academic average and cannot fail more than one course.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Scott, can I just add something? Can I just read that first line again? So that way we're all on the same page.
Absolutely.
Our goal is that all students are participating in extracurricular activities. This is not just sports, this is extracurricular activities. I know that sport, to say sports was just listed.
Should I can amend.
I would just, it's up to you guys, I just want to make sure that would be changing the entire rule to not cover extracurricular activities and single out
Well,
athletics.
I think if we're making the change for athletes, we should make them for all students.
Okay.
Agreed.
Okay, I will amend my previous motion. I move that we approve the standard for student athletic eligibility.
And extracurricular action.
All right, I'm sorry.
The students who participate in extracurricular activities.
I move that we approve students who participate in extracurricular activities at Carver Middle High School must maintain a 65 overall academic average and cannot fail more than one course.
I will second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion or clarification? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? No.
No.
So that passes 3-2, correct?
Yep, that passes
Okay.
3-2.
So that takes us to,
Second issue.
So the second item that we have on the list is not currently in the handbook, but with transparency, we want to make sure that we are putting something in the handbook, so that way it doesn't come up each year and we understand what the process is. I will read this. The usage of seventh grade student athletes, this is what we would like to recommend to happen. Again, after much discussion, the usage of seventh grade student athletes on high school sporting teams will be recommended by the athletic director to the building principal at least 2 weeks prior to the start of the season when possible. The athletic director will provide information to the building principal in regards to current registrations and how to utilize seventh grade student athletes would be utilization of seventh grade student athletes would be used to continue to provide a varsity and sub-varsity option when possible. Seventh grade student athletes would only be eligible to lowest level the school offers at that sport. Carver Middle High School will not be allowing seventh grade student athletes in heavy contact sports such as football and both ice hockeys. A little bit of background on that. This one is kind of what we use currently, where we will be looking at the participation level. We'll be looking at, are we just adding all these seventh graders for a team? We look at displacement of student athletes. We want to make sure that we're not displacing student athletes. As a reminder, this is high school athletics, and we don't want to take away the opportunity for a high school student athlete, regardless of skill set. Athletics and co-curricular activities offers numerous things to every student, and it's so different. And we want to make sure that we're not displacing them. When we look at the use of seventh grade student athletes, it was outstanding this year and in years past. Without them, we would not have had a girls tennis team. Our track team utilized the seventh graders for cross country. And then as we got going, you usually have your same student athletes that do those three sports, cross country, and I'm saying usually, I'm not saying all, but cross country, indoor track and outdoor track. And we didn't want to be taking that away from somebody, saying, here's your opportunity, now we're going to pull it away because you don't meet a number. So we allow them to continue to roll with that. As we look, we are returning boys soccer to our school. There is an opportunity that we may need the use of seventh grade student athletes for a sub-varsity team. And I say sub-varsity because I don't want to say JV, I don't want to say freshman. The landscape of athletics has changed, and we can use what we call freshman teams. We find what's the best fit for everybody, and what level we play at. And then we also have to look at what teams are we competing at in our league, and how do our student athletes fit. If we're going up against teams that all use freshmen and sophomores at a certain level, how much benefit are we getting to seventh graders? And what detriment are we doing to them for trying a sport that they like, where they're going to reach burnout sooner, or their coaches are going to get frustrated, their teammates are going to get frustrated. So there's a lot that goes into it, and what this does is this gives us a process that's written down with how we come to that. And that's really encouraging families. I mean, I opened up sports registration for the fall 3 weeks ago. So that way we can start to compile data and be able to say, hey, this is where we are, and be able to make good educated decisions. And having a process down in place, I think, would allow us to do that. We looked at some sports where, yes, there are some certain seventh graders that might be able to hold their own at a sub-varsity level. There are some that cannot. Okay, and there are sports you wouldn't even think of, baseball, softball. I mean, I just went and saw 3 of our kids get hit by a pitch tonight. If I saw some of those pitches coming in as fast as they were to somebody younger, then that could create a dangerous situation. And sometimes when we say they're playing at a lower level, so it won't be as fast, it might be as fast, but it might not be under control. That's why that person is not on the varsity team. So we have to look at the holistic approach on each team when we ask for the seventh graders. This is documenting that and asking for that.
One of the concerns that came up in our student advisory committee meeting, one of the young ladies said that on the soccer team that the seventh graders were rather immature and negatively affected practices. Also, along with that is when you have a seventh grader on a bus with an 18-year-old senior, and there's maybe some inappropriateness and age disparity.
Yep, and that was brought up by the Student Athlete Advisory Committee. Okay. There was a lot of talk about that. And that's why I'm saying we have to look at the whole process and not just jump in to say, yeah, let's go for it. Right. We have to look at what's our team look like, what are our coaches, what support do our coaches need from our athletic program to make this work? Mm-hmm. We can't just say, well, it won't work with this team because that bus is, it's going to be all over the place. That's not a good answer from the athletic program, is to be able to provide the support for that to happen. And that's why I'm saying it's 2 weeks before, so a lot of discussions can happen. We actually held a interest meeting, not about seventh graders, but an interest meeting for soccers, both soccers, because we were in jeopardy of not having 2 soccers this year, boys or girls. We had an interest meeting. It was a good discussion, and I saw some seventh grade parents start to say, well, that might not be the right fit for us. And some say, yeah, that's the right fit for us, but sometimes it's not. So that's why a lot of discussions have to happen. There's a lot about maturity. There's a lot about burnout. There's a lot about expectations. Some people say, my child's in 7th grade and he's on JV and this is going to be great. And sometimes it doesn't work like that when you go up against some of these other schools and it's a processing problem for the student athletes and for the families. So that's why we have to look at this very severely and make sure we're doing the right thing, and is the organization the best thing for them.
I was focused on the part, so seventh graders would only be eligible to participate in the lowest level offered, is that correct?
Yes.
So, and then, I may know this, but I'm not sure. So this year, seventh graders participate in girls soccer, boys soccer, golf, cross-country, winter and spring track. I'm just curious if these seventh graders were on, which seventh graders were on varsity teams within those sports?
So I believe golf, definitely. There was only one team. And when you look at those, it was the ones with single teams. So if seventh graders were used, they were used at the lowest level, which would have been JV.
Okay.
Now, I go back to, in some cases, I will say, and I will take ownership as the athletic director, there were some cases where we said we were going to have a team at certain levels. I think soccer was one of them. And we took on more seventh graders than we should have, because we didn't look at registration numbers. We didn't have a plan in place to say, okay, it's not going to work to have a JV team. Let's offer you an intramural option. That would have been the best fit, rather than having seventh graders sit there.
So, just in the nature of transparency, as I've been having this conversation with people, overall, I felt like, we had using seventh graders in cross-country and in girls' tennis saved those teams. And I think that's a little bit of a reality place we're in right now, is that for some teams, we're going to need those seventh graders to maintain those teams. And I think that was good for the school and good for the kids. I think of our senior valedictorian was a tennis player, and she got to have a girls' tennis season this year because seventh graders played. And that's great. That's outstanding. But I do think that we had a couple places where we didn't do a good job process-wise, and that's why we're trying to look really here at the process. And specifically, one of those was girls' soccer. I'll use that example. So girls' soccer, we thought originally when we had signups that we were going to have enough to have a sub-varsity team and a varsity team. And then what happened was over the summer, and when the season started, there was just a little shift. Students sometimes make a different decision, say, I'm going to play this sport, but then when the season starts, they decide to play a different sport or decide not to play. And what we ended up with was we added the seventh graders, they were on the team, they tried out, but we had, I don't remember exactly, it was 19 or 20.
Yeah.
One of those two numbers, but that's not enough for a varsity and a JV soccer team. So now we have the seventh graders on this varsity team. And I think, Katie brought up specifically, there was some concerns about that team, because maybe in that situation, those seventh graders really weren't prepared to be on a varsity team. And maybe we did this with disservice by allowing them to be on that varsity team. And so that's where we're in a funny place as a school district a little bit, based on our size, based on the number of student athletes, that we have to be really thoughtful about our approach on this issue, and looking to ensure that all students have a good experience.
But so your intent was that those seventh graders would have been on JV?
Right. So when the season started, the intent was that there was going to be two teams.
Right.
But then when the numbers fell out after tryouts, when the season actually began, there weren't enough numbers to have two teams. But we weren't going to then say to the seventh graders, well, you can't play. So we allowed them to stay on the team, but they in that sport, in that situation, probably it wasn't the best match for them. And that's the unique situation we're in a little bit as a school district right now. So for many years, really, we haven't used seventh grade until this year. We hadn't used seventh graders. I can't name the exact year, but it was definitely the late 90s. Maybe early 2000s. So for over 20 years, we haven't used seventh graders, because in general, we've been able to fill our teams with 8 to 12. But this year, we decided to use the seventh graders because we started looking at some of our teams and saying, we're going to lose teams if we don't have the seventh graders. And so we're in a little bit of this fine balancing act. And I will say, I'm the most surprised in myself that I'm supporting this proposal right now to take a look at this and do what we did again this year, because there were some things that didn't go well this year. So we have to acknowledge that as an administration and make sure that they go well next year. And there's certain things that did go well with this policy, so we just have to do a better job with it. We have to do a better job in terms of managing it. And the other thing we've talked about is we have talked about next year the athletic director and Mr. McGinnis actually setting up like an athletic study committee and looking at this issue specifically in terms of, do we want to allow seventh graders to play? Because there's other things, there's also financial components to this that we need to at least address or bring up. You know, that in certain sports, if we said wide open 7 through 12, based on student interest, we might have to add teams. To have teams for the seventh graders, or we're going to be cutting a lot of kids, and maybe a lot of those seventh graders, because they may not be prepared to play. Now, some of those seventh graders might be prepared to play, and they might displace an older kid, but a lot of those seventh graders really wouldn't be prepared to play at that next level. But if we're going to offer it out, we don't want to cut all these student athletes, so then then there's a financial piece of adding teams in certain sports. So I think we have to take time maybe to have a more comprehensive look at it. And that's part of the rationale for the reason of maintaining what we did this year and trying to do it better. And Mr. McGinnis, recommending some processes, that whole 2-week piece of looking 2 weeks before and making this final decision of, yes, we need them, or no, we don't need them in terms of seventh graders. And really where our problem came was in the fall sports. So I think we'd have to be really close, take some time, be thoughtful about our approach to what we're going to do with the fall sports for seventh grade.
And just to add on that, just two things. One, when we start to talk about that 2 weeks in the fall sports, there is no problem with adding seventh graders 2 days after the season starts. Because if we're adding them, it's to save a team. So we're bringing them on to make sure everybody can play. So it's not that rush, we've got to get it done. And the other piece that I want to make sure that you understand that we haven't talked about is our effect on youth sports within the town. There's two different components to that. One, the youth sports are building a good foundation for us. If we rush too fast, some of these students won't be ready, and we'll break down the foundation for what we're looking for to build on. And we need to do that. And we don't want to break down one of our youth sports. There are some youth sports that are growing so rapidly, and sometimes our middle school students, especially our 6th and 7th graders, need to taste that success, need to taste that leadership role that they get within the youth sports. So those were the only two parts that I didn't talk about for the first time.
Can I just raise one question? Because you talked about full contact ice hockey and football. What about cheer, since it's rapidly being deemed one of the most dangerous sports in the world? I struggle with the social emotional part of a 7th grader hanging out with, an 18-year-old all the time in the bus, and we talked about all that. But in terms of injury, a 7th grader that weighs 60 pounds and is 12 years old is going to end up on the top of that pyramid. It's going to be the flyer. They're going to be the one that's tossed around all the time. They're still growing. They get injured. They can have permanent damage. I'm struggling with 7th graders being on cheer as well.
But please remember that we said that was part of the holistic approach on how we're going to look at things.
All right.
And it's not just about rushing kids to say this is going to build us a great dynamo program. They need that success. They need that growth of the foundation. And every program has to be looked at separately. And when I, as the athletic director, meets with both Mr. Antel and present to Ms. Cabral, there has to be data just on, hey, we need hey, I think it would be cool. It's got to look at, here's the social emotional piece, here's the growth, here's how we affect the youth program, here's how our kids think, here's who could be displaced. Because we do have some high school student athletes that could be number 10 and 11 on a roster that would be like, I'm not going to play if they're going to play. I can bring up one school right now that utilized 7th graders when they were 7th graders. They're going into a very major sport next year. They just graduated 12 seniors on a 13-person roster because they were all 7th graders when they all came in. Now they could lose that sport. And it's a major sport for that school. So that's why you have to look at things and not just say, okay, let's get this out there because we're getting pressure from people to make a decision. It's got to be right.
And so that's also another question, because I know there was concern on a sports team that upperclassmen didn't get to play because 7th graders played. And they may have been better golf players, but they took the space of a high school.
So I'm going to answer this, so I apologize. If we made the rule that 7th graders were eligible for that program, and it's a varsity team, unfortunately, the best student athlete is the one that should be performing on the field, court, mat, whatever it is that day. And that goes back into the process that was in place. So I know we might want to hear, yeah, they should have sat back, but we delivered a word to these student athletes that they were going to be on the team. And once you do that, you can't segregate based off of age.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it goes into communication and research again from the start.
Right. And that's where I have a problem, because I don't agree with the seventh grader taking a spot away from a high schooler or even an eighth grader. If someone's committed, and they're in their senior year of a sport, and I've heard it from other people as well, not just, myself. That's the feedback that I've gotten from parents, is kids have put in this work for all these years, all these hours of practices, and then a seventh grader comes in and they're benched.
Yep.
And I don't think that's fair. But I understand also that, we certainly don't want to see us not have teams because we don't have enough kids to field them. And if there are enough seventh graders that are ready to play, that we could field a team, that would be great. What I would love to see us be able to do is to bring back a middle school sports program, or build up our intramural program so that it maybe works in conjunction with town sports. It can be more competitive and can really, give our younger students the opportunity to develop those skills and then be that much more prepared for, even eighth grade, if we're looking at eligibility and having eighth graders fill those high school slots. I just know so many students that were so disappointed this year, as well as their families. And I appreciate all the information, though, and I understand that we all want the kids to succeed, right? We all want them to have the opportunity. I just think we need to be creative. I wish we had a printer we could just fire up and print off money so that we could, so we could build out that program. And I do have concerns.
Rebuilding a middle school sports program, and
Right.
this would have a financial impact. We don't know what that is exactly, but
Right.
that would go back into, that, if we were going to do some sort of a study next year of if that could possibly be a proposal that came out of that, then that would clearly have to be involved in our budget process and looking at the costs associated with that, and is that, what, and can the district afford that, or what other decisions would the district have to make to afford that?
Yeah, I know this is very complicated. Plus, we struggle with transportation as it is now for our current teams. So I know that we have some challenges. We're not that we're the only district that has those challenges, but I realize that they do exist.
Ms. Clark, I just want to double check. This is not asking for seventh graders across the board. This is actually supporting kind of what your statement was, is that we'll look at that to make sure high school students aren't displaced. And it's also the job of the athletic office to make sure that if we have seventh graders on a sub-varsity team, that coaches are also educated what a sub-varsity team is meant for, and it's for the development of student athletes, and to make sure it's not about equal playing time, it's about development of everybody, so that everybody gets that opportunity to play and develop themselves. So I want to make sure that in no way are we saying that we're going to use seventh graders to displace high school student athletes.
Right.
It's to make sure that they're not displaced based off of numbers, where they could be displaced if we say we don't have enough for a sub-varsity team, we have too many for a varsity team, we might have to reduce just to get it there. It's to save that opportunity. That's what this process would be in place for, till the athletic review process can be done.
Right.
Yeah,
No, I understand that.
Yeah, and I think that piece about that they have to play on the lowest level available, basically, they won't be kicking someone off of varsity if this JV is available.
Well, but this year for soccer, there ended up being only a varsity team, so there were seventh graders that were taking playing time away from older students. So, and I understand everyone needs an opportunity to play, and I understand those things, and to me, there's management.
But if that had not happened, then nobody would have played, correct?
Well, for girls soccer, again, girls soccer was the team where our belief was we were going to have two teams, and those seventh graders would have played on the sub-varsity team, but in the end, that's not what happened.
And athletics owns that piece.
Yeah, we have to,
I own
that's
that
what we have
piece.
to do a better job.
But I'm asking, if the seventh graders didn't play this year because there wasn't enough for the two teams?
No, so for that team, we did not need the seventh graders to have a team.
Okay.
We thought we were using the seventh graders. The goal of adding the seventh graders to that team was to have a sub-varsity team. And then in the end, we just fell one or two students short of that. So we would have had a varsity team without the seventh graders.
Got it.
And so probably the recommendation for that sport should have been to not allow seventh graders to play.
Yeah, and that's.
But it was, that's the key point. It becomes
And that was the one that I heard about at our meeting.
Right,
where
correct.
They did not positively add to the experience.
So that ultimately, that does put a little pressure on, the administration's taking on some pressure here to make the right call for each sport.
And we did have a similar situation this spring. with baseball, where we had a dangerous number, too many, too few. So what we actually did to make sure that everybody got some ample time is we went and scheduled some extra games and make sure there was a balance so everybody got some extra time. And only the 8th graders played in those extra games to make sure they got extra time, and they were used a little more limited on the sub-varsity high school level, so that way they weren't taking time away from sophomores or juniors. So it's all about addressing it and doing it quickly and educating everybody on why we're doing it and how we're doing it.
Right. Proper planning prevents poor performance.
Yes.
Not saying that your performance was poor, just stating that this is part of that process, right? So,
Ready?
anyone else? Okay, so would someone like to make a motion?
I move that the following language be added to both the middle and high school handbooks. The usage of 7th grade student athletes on high school sporting teams will be recommended by the athletic director to the building principal at least 2 weeks prior to the start of the season when possible. The athletic director will provide information to the building principal in regards to current registrations and how utilization of 7th grade student athletes would be used to continue to provide a varsity and a sub-varsity option when possible. 7th grade student athletes would only be eligible for the lowest level of the school offers at that sport. Carver Middle High School will not be allowing 7th grade students in heavy contact sports such as football and ice hockey.
I second.
I'm going to say, you can amend it to add that if you want to. Certainly
No, I
within
won't. And I don't want to live with them.
your purview. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Anyway. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? No. So the motion passes 4-1. So that brings us to 8th grade.
So at this time, it is my recommendation, representing athletics, that 8th grade students be allowed to participate in any level of a program provided the coach completes the following criteria prior to tryouts being completed. The coach needs to confirm that no student athlete shall be displaced by an 8th grade student making a varsity team. The program's varsity coach shall meet with the athletic director to review the placement of the said athletes prior to the selection being made. The athletic director shall meet with the high school administrator to review placement of the said student athletes prior to the selection being made. We have 3 criteria that the prior to a student athlete being placed at the 8th grade level. That is for protection of numerous groups. One is the 8th grade student, to make sure we're not rushing them too quickly, social, emotionally, physically, mentally, every other way that you could list out. Not everybody is ready, even though we all think that they're ready. The athletic director will not get involved with the selection of a student athlete to say, I actually think this person should be placed on the team and this person should not. It will be more through conversations. It will be more through direct questions, because that athletic director then needs to represent that student athlete to the next level. This is all before the teams are made. So there's a lot of thought process that needs to be done. We need to move quickly but not rush when we're in that process. An administrator, and again, I'm using general terms because this process is meant to be done no matter who is sitting in any seat, that a process needs to be followed, that we have discussions before just saying, yeah, let's put this person on there. It's going to be great. Questions such as, is that student athlete actually going to play more than 50% of a game? If not, then why are we doing it? How are we going to set up a mentor program to have like a big brother, big sister type process to make sure? I will tell you, some of the loneliness feelings you can be as an 8th grade student on a high school team, being that lone 8th grader. There are shows, there are conversations. It gets back to what you had talked about with what you heard from soccer. That gets into the process that the athletic program is setting up to make sure that it's done properly. There will be reviews done by the athletic director to make sure that the student athlete is placed properly. That means going to games, having conversations, quick check-ins. How you doing? How's things going? And not in a hallway with 8 friends around. That's having that personal connection with that student athlete who's going to be with you for 5 years to make sure that we're there. There are certain student athletes that can handle this. There are more student athletes that cannot. There are more families that think they can handle it than can actually handle it. So it's a process that's in place. They have, just like we're talking when we talk academics, trust us as administrators and educators that we have the best for their child. We will have the same thing for athletics. We want to make sure that we're taking care of them, but we also have to make sure that we're not rushing students outside of them. Those sophomores, juniors that did not get selected for the team, how are those conversations going to be held? Are we looking long range, or are we just looking for that 1 year? All that comes up with sections A, B, and C, those conversations. If we look at a conversation, if we choose a sport, we'll choose badminton, because I don't want to get specific in the sport. If they have 3 days of tryouts, I would assume that after the first day, that coach is coming to the athletic director and saying, okay, we've got something. We need to talk. The athletic director needs to go put their eyes on that tryout. They will not be evaluating that student athlete. That is not what an athletic director is for. If we hire a badminton coach, we think that they are the expert. They pick that team. What we do is we make sure that that student athlete and all the student athletes are protected in the long run. So that is what we are thinking. And again, this would allow 8th graders. We are talking about a small portion. We're not talking about, I bring up that school, I will not say the school, I won't say the sport, but I've seen it be destroyed. When a new coach comes in, or an older coach, and I don't mean that age-wise, I'm talking about term-wise, they come in and say, I'm going to play these 5 8th graders and that's it. That's where we have to have a process to make sure, checks and balances in an audit system, to make sure that everything is done right. And there are multiple people that have check boxes on that list, to not just say, fine, just go for it. That is what we would like to recommend.
So I have to weigh on this issue a little bit, because I know that even within the community, many people feel that I'm a huge supporter of the rule of not allowing the 8th graders to play at the varsity level or play at the lowest level offered. And obviously that makes sense. So when the buildings combined in 2009, I was the principal of the building at that time. So we went from a middle school and a separate middle school, separate high school, to one building under one principal, then that allowed the 7th and 8th graders to play. Prior to that, for many years, we had a middle school sports program, and there was middle school sports and the high school sports. And I was at the time, when as the principal, I supported the concept of 8th graders only playing at the lowest level offered. For a lot of reasons that Mr. McGinnis just touched on. And then the reality is it really is a small handful of students who can come in the 8th grade and really participate on a varsity team. Doesn't say they certainly are out there, but the number is small. And I was always concerned about displacement. And I also was looking at what other schools were doing and how many schools were allowing 8th graders to participate. Our structure is a little unusual. There aren't many 6 through 12 middle high schools in Massachusetts. There's a couple other ones. But that's all shifted since 2009. The reality is, over the last 14 years, more school districts are going to a similar structure that we have. Not many are 6 through 12, but there's more 7 through 12. And many more schools are utilizing 8th graders through a waiver process. So the ground is shifted, and I think we have to adjust to that shift, and I have to adjust to that shift. So I was certainly a proponent of the current policy that's in place as the principal of the school for many years. But I do feel like we're a little out of step with what other schools are doing. The majority of schools most of the schools in our league are using 8th graders for the majority of their sports, even if they're not an 8 through 12 school or a 7 through 12 school. They're using a waiver process to allow those 8th graders to play. And then they are allowing those 8th graders to play at the highest level. So I'm supportive of making this change, and with the stipulations that Mr. McGinnis has put in place here, confirming that no senior student athlete would be displaced for an 8th grader, and then making sure that there's a review process in place about how the 8th grader is going to be utilized. Because the other fear is that, and I've seen a little bit more of this just from my own watching of athletic experiences and talking to other ADs and principals, is that there's some schools that allow the 8th graders to play, put them on the varsity team, and then the student athlete doesn't really play a lot, which that doesn't make a lot of sense. Why put them on the varsity team and not have them play? And then they're not necessarily playing in the JV game either. So I think it's really good that we have kind of a review process, have discussions about what's the intent to utilize that student athlete if they're going to be on the varsity team. So I am supportive of this change.
Can I actually ask a question?
Oh.
Can an eighth grader go back down to a sub-varsity program halfway through the season or at any point?
So, having coached for over 20-plus years and been an athletic director, one of the first things I ever learned was once you make a decision on a student athlete, you own that decision as an adult. So if you take a student athlete as an eighth grader and you put them on varsity, you do not put them on JV because you're doing so much social and emotional damage to that child. However, you work ways for them to get into some JV games. They call it swing players. Most sports use that. But once you take them away from that varsity team, they're done.
Yeah.
They're done athletically,
100%.
they're done socially, emotionally, and they're done with their friends. And that all weighs into why you have to have a process to review this. And that's why I think the athletic director and the athletic office has to own this piece and own that student athlete for the time that they enter to the time they graduate. Because I do agree, I've seen so many student athletes, like Mr. Neef said, they get put on there because it's that new shiny thing. Let's get them up there. And then sophomore year, it goes, I always say, you get that student that has so much potential, freshman year. Sophomore year, that student has so much potential. Third year, that student has so much potential. Senior year, that student had. They changed the S for the D because we rush that student along. That means the student should never have been in that process.
So I don't know if there's any other questions, or if someone has a motion, or...
Have any questions? I just want to say that I appreciate that perspective and that level of thought, because I know that hasn't always been the case for our student athletes. So I'm glad that that is being taken into consideration and that you're being so transparent about that being part of this process, because clearly this is, important and emotional and can really have consequences that can be detrimental to students. So thank you for mentioning that specifically and for taking that and giving it the spotlight that it deserves, because it matters. So anyway, do you have anything else? Okay, does anyone have any other questions or any comments? Hey, would someone like to make a motion?
Yes, I move that the following language be added to both the middle and high school handbooks. Eighth grade student athletes will be allowed to participate on any level of a program provided the coach completes the following criteria prior to tryouts being completed. A, confirm no senior student athlete shall be displaced by an eighth grade student athlete making a varsity level team. B, the program's varsity coach shall meet with the athletic director to review placement of said student athletes prior to the selection being made. C, the athletic director shall meet with a high school administrator to review placement of said student athlete prior to the selection being made.
I second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you very much.
Okay.
The next piece that we'd like to review is the the handbook. And I'm working with Mr. Antel. We would like to jointly say this will be the last time you'll be receiving 2 handbook updates. We started to put together our committee to join our 2 handbooks, and that should be presented for next year. I just want to make sure we have a timeline for that. We've already started to talk to a committee, and we will start that upon return to the school.
I'm not trying to make this more confusing, but there's other aspects of the handbook that are identical in terms of their changes. So my suggestion would be, why don't we cover the ones that are identical? Have a motion to approve those for both handbooks, and then go back and individually again approve the things that are identical. A little unusual, but we have some really specific and obviously important topics that we wanted to hash out when looking at the 2 handbooks this year. Is it okay with that process? So,
I think that's a great plan.
Mr. Antel and Ms. McGinnis want to do the things that are the same for both handbooks.
So many of it is the same in both handbooks. This is actually a really simple fix. A lot of it was more grammatical and things like that. We've updated. We're going to update staffing. We're going to update the principal letter. update the school committee, school council, administrative team in both handbooks. Additionally, in regards to when, we've just taken out the aspect where it was an hour paired in with lunch. Since we've moved it in the schedule, we're just documenting in the handbook that it is a half hour at a different time, no longer paired with our lunch block, which I think Christine did mention earlier. We found a lot of success in student engagement when we took it out of lunch, so we'd like to continue to do that as well. The two other kind of pair changes that we're making, one has to do with student detentions, and we're just going to add in some language there that reads, student who have failed to serve a teacher detention will not be allowed to participate in any extracurricular activity until detention is served. And that is because extracurricular is exactly what it says. It's an extracurricular activity. It's our thought, and the teachers that we've run our revisions by, that, you know, you have to make sure you're handling what you're supposed to handle during the school day before you get the privileges and everything that goes on with the extracurricular and the more fun pieces of school. Additionally, that's also going to go into, it says on page 51, when it goes to tardies. And again, it just adds verbiage at the end that says if any student has discipline due to tardy to school, whether 5 or 10 times, again, they're not going to be able to participate in their co-curricular activities or extracurricular activities until that consequence is served. So we're talking really kind of no longer just like we're going to miss baseball practice. We're going to talking about class trips. We're talking about dances. We're talking about, you know, all of that extra piece of school until you can handle what you need to handle during the school day, for lack of a better term.
And then the only other addition that we have for high school that is different.
But
Those are similar to what you said.
those are the same, so I don't know if we want to take a motion
Yes.
to a vote and approve the same, things are the same for both handbooks?
I move, oh, hold on.
Yeah, so we're going to, a little different than what we've had, so just a motion to approve the changes as proposed in both the middle school and high school handbook.
I move to approve the changes of both the middle school and high school handbook proposals as presented.
A second.
Was that motion distinct enough?
I think it is, because we took individual motions on each of, so we, in my mind, we took an individual motion on the three athletic, athletic eligibility of the seventh graders and the eighth graders.
Okay.
So we have specific motions on that, that's on the record. So now it's just an overview of the motions that, of the information that was just presented at this time.
Okay.
I think we're good.
I just wanted to make sure that we were capturing that correctly. Okay, there's been a motion. I'm sorry, was there a second?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And then, Ms. Swingers, you have one additional change for the middle high school.
I have
Okay.
one additional change.
For the high school, sorry.
We'd be adding it to section 47. It's adding verbiage to section H in regards to captains. Reads Carver Middle High School also holds its students in leadership roles, IET captains, officers, organizations, club officers, peer educators, to a high expectations. Leaders carry with the responsibilities to guide those in their charge, and in doing so, they must be held to the strictest standards. In keeping with additional expectations, students in leadership roles cannot be appointed to a team captain if they have a chemical health violation or at any point during the calendar year with a violation. If they do, this will result in forfeiture of leadership position. Therefore, any violation of the chemical health policy will result in forfeiture of leadership roles for 3 athletic seasons. That actually needs to come out. It should be for 3 terms, because we're talking about co-curricular. During this, so it's 1 year basically. During the second season of leadership forfeiture, a student may request to be eligible for leadership opportunities. During the third season, be submitting a written request to the athletic director or assistant principal, Mr. Neef, because that would include requests. I apologize, that's my ownership on that one. After review, if the athletic director or assistant principal is in support, they will request a review by the building principal, who will make the final decision to reinstate that leadership position. That is new for the handbook, and that is to ensure that we have strong leaders, people that we want representing Carver at all times. That was the only other change.
Is there still like a chemical health policy for all athletes?
There is a chemical health policy for all athletes, yes.
Okay.
And we follow the MIAA policy. There's also a controlled substance policy in the general student handbook as well.
Anybody else?
Okay, great. Would someone like to make a motion?
Yep. I move to approve the remainder of the high school handbook proposals as presented this evening.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you very much.
Thank you for all your work. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We know
for-
that's it was a lot.
Yes, thank you for your patience in answering everyone's questions. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you for your efforts. I know there was a lot of work that went into all of that, and we appreciate it.
It's been about 2.5 hours. Can we take a quick recess of 5 minutes?
Sure. Okay, it is just about 9:20. So we're going to take a quick recess. So if someone, do we need to make a
Yeah, we
motion?
should make the motion to
Make a
go
motion?
into-
5-minute
To take a
recess.
5-minute
I will second.
recess. Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
So we'll see everyone back here at about 9:24. Okay, so it is now 9:25, so I reconvene the June 5th, 2023 meeting of the Carver School Committee. So next on our agenda is the financial update, I believe.
Yep, so we're glad to have Ron give us a little overview of what's been happening at state and federal finances.
Thank you all. I'll be very brief. I know we're getting late into the evening. So just a quick update on the budget season as it continues on Beacon Hill. As you recall, the governor already proposed her budget. House has their budget proposal already through. It was at Senate Ways and Means just last week and recently has been passed by the Senate unanimously. You can see a couple of highlights that I've included in the memo to you. I won't read them all, but the big picture is the Senate has broadly approved a lot of the major components that both the House and Governor did. They have a few components that they don't see eye to eye on yet, which is typical this time of year. One component that I'll just bring to your attention that we talked about last month. So we expected that the Senate would take into account some impact from that April revenues report where the state revenues came in substantially less than anticipated. I haven't seen the May out just yet, but it was pretty clear that they took a little more of a conservative approach, as they should, given that revenue report. And with things like the, agreement and not unison necessarily on some of the transportation provisions, and the Senate also not currently recommending that universal school lunch program as part of FY24, although they did mention that that may be something they consider in the supplemental budget, which is probably where it belongs more appropriately anyway. That said, Joint Conference Committee has already begun. We expect that they will reconcile House, Senate, and Governor's numbers with the goal of presenting a final budget for July 1st. They haven't in the past couple of years met that goal, so we're hopeful that they do meet the July 1st deadline. And we expect, again, that some of those conservative revenue numbers will influence the joint committee conversations to land on a safe, conservative budget for FY24 at the state level. I'll keep you up to date, and hopefully July 1st we'll have a state budget. Otherwise, the only other updates for finance are just a couple of Q4 warrants. You see payroll and expense there, and no transfers at this time.
Great. Thank you very much.
No action required at this time.
No action required.
All right, very good. All right, moving into our second readings of 4 policies and then a possible final vote on the school committee policy manual. So if that's okay, I'll just go through all 4 of these, if that works.
Go for it.
So, we have 4 policies that we need additional time to complete and review as part of our overall review of the policy manual. Our goal is to do a second reading of those 4 policies tonight and looking to have a motion to approve those 4 policies. And then that would put us in position to take a vote on approving the final school committee policy manual that we've approved either in form or through individual votes on certain policies. For 3 of these policies, after our first reading, we didn't have any recommendations for changes, but on one we did. So we'll just go through them individually. So the first one was, we made some minor changes to our policy GBEBBA-E, Educator Ethics Protocols. We felt like this was a really good policy, just some of the language is a little bit outdated, so we've updated the language to make it a little more current. But I would approve, since there were no recommendations for changes after the first reading, I would propose that we move to approve this policy. I don't know if there's any specific questions about it, if people want me to pull it up. So as a very specific example, the language we changed was in the second paragraph out of like outside of school, do not send text messages, message students on social media. Like that section used to use language like MySpace and names kind of old outdated sites, so we made it more generic. To just say, you should not be messaging students through social media. That was an example of the types of changes that we made to this policy. It's really all around teachers and staff maintaining appropriate boundaries with what their interactions are with students.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Nope. Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
Sure. I move to approve policy GBEBBA, Educator Ethics / Protocols, as presented this evening.
A second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
And the second policy was policy EBBA, Automated External Defibrillator Policy, or AED policy. And again, we did not have any recommendations for changes, but as a review and reminder for the committee and the community, this policy was actually developed by Karen Schoen, the district's nurse leader, in conjunction with Dr. Daniel Hughes, who's agreed to serve as in the role of medical director to oversee our AEDs. We're actually required to have a medical director, and Dr. Hughes specializes in emergency medicine. And I think, as I said last time, he did work at Brockton Hospital. I know Brockton Hospital's closed right now, so I don't know exactly where he's serving in the hospital, but we're very appreciative of Dr. Hughes for being willing to, A, help us write the policy and oversee it, and then C, obviously, to serve in the role of medical director. So there were no recommended changes based on the first reading, so the recommendation would be to approve this policy this evening.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Anyone?
I move to approve policy EBBA, Automated External Defibrillator Policy, as presented this evening.
A second. We have a motion and a second. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor? Aye.
The third policy was on security cameras in school. As I said, it's the last time we didn't recommend any changes to this policy. And this policy was actually, we took the MASC policy, brought it to our legal counsel, and then the legal counsel recommended the changes that are here. This is not a policy that the school district had, but obviously we have security cameras in schools. So we felt like it was a policy that we needed to add in. And this policy has been written and supported by legal counsel. So I would recommend that we approve policy ECAF.
Okay. I move to approve policy ECAF, Policy on Security Cameras, as presented this evening.
A second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the final policy was our acceptable use policy for the use of technology. During our discussion through the first reading, there was a suggestion that, Kelly have a conversation with our technology staff in terms of a couple items that were in this policy. And then Kelly actually brought forward some recommendations to me, which I sent along to the technology staff. And the technology staff agreed with them and has added them in. So the additions that are different from our first reading in this policy is actually number 11 and number 26, and I'll read them for you. So number 11 is, we're adding in, it is the responsibility of the user to take measures to protect the security of the computer and the data stored in it. This includes preventing use of the computer by unauthorized individuals. When the computer is not in the user's physical control, the computer should be shut down or the screen should be locked, and with a password/passcode to prevent unauthorized access. And then we're also adding statement number 26. It is responsibility of the assigned user to physically protect any devices assigned to them. This includes taking reasonable steps to protect the device from damage or theft. Devices should be transported in an appropriate protected manner and should not be left unattended in any public place or unsecured or parked vehicle. Failure to take reasonable care and protection of the district's equipment may result in the user being, may result in the assigned user being personally liable for the cost of the repair and replacement of the equipment. So the suggestion was to add in these two statements. Ms. Kelly, I don't know if you have anything additional to that? No?
Nope. It's all good.
So we added those pieces in, and it is recommended that we approve this policy this evening. Policy IJNDD.
I move to approve policy IJNDD, acceptable use of technology as presented this evening.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
All right, and that brings us to our final vote on the school committee policy manual. You know, as I think you all know, this is a process we've been going on since really, I think we started in November. So we've spent the last several months reviewing the school committee policy manual. We've been looking at each individual sections at school committee meetings, doing first and second readings of them. And tonight, I think we should move forward and finalize that work by taking a final vote to approve the entire manual. So I don't know, I want to thank the members of the policy subcommittee for all the work they did on this, Stephanie and Jen Pratt, the former member of the school committee, and Kelly. So I don't know if Stephanie, if you have anything to add or any additional comments, or?
Stephanie, you have any initial comments?
Any additional comments? I'm glad that we went through the process. It was long, it was arduous, but I'm very thankful and proud that we're going to be moving all of our policies forward a few decades so that we are in line with where we should be. So I'm very grateful to everyone that put the time in. I'm grateful to the members of our committee, to Mr. Neef and Jim Hardy, our field representative at MASC, who also worked with us and answered all of our questions to get us to this point. So I would welcome a motion to approve.
The only piece I'd like to add in, is that just a reminder, the committee has voted earlier this year that MASC would host the policy manual. So with this vote, we will also turn over hosting the manual to MASC, and what will happen is the manual as it exists on our website will come down, but a link will be put up to direct people to the MASC, where they'll be able to access our entire policy manual, because they'll be hosting it.
Correct.
All right. Are we ready? I move to approve the Carver School Committee Manual as previously approved in form and recipient in all previous versions of the policy manual. This policy manual will be in effect immediately.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. That is unanimous. Hooray. Wow. That was so many hours of work. So many hours, so many meetings, but like I said, I'm thankful that we had the opportunity to do that.
Is it kind of anticlimactic now?
Yeah.
What am I going to do with all of my free time? I don't know what I'm going to do.
Sure you
It's
will
like
find
2 days a
something.
week. Anyway, okay, so that brings us to reports from the school committee in all seriousness. The first item is disclosure in response to open meeting law complaint, minutes, and meeting notices. So I am just going to read something that was prepared. So it says, at the next scheduled school committee meeting, the policy subcommittee will update the full committee and public as to the need for remedial action and steps moving forward. This announcement will include a reminder as to the district's obligations related to properly posting meetings, accurately taking, and the timely approving of meeting minutes. So, in response to an open meeting law complaint that we received, we've identified opportunities to improve our practices and to be in better compliance with open meeting law. As such, the following actions have and will be taken. The district has reissued the open meeting law guide to all school committee members who have recertified their receipt of it. Moving forward, meeting notices will contain sufficient specificity to reasonably advise the public of issues to be discussed at the meeting. When possible, meeting minutes will be approved at the following meeting. And the next item that we have in reports from the school committee is reviewing school committee meeting dates. Actually, before we start that, I just want to say one other thing. I just want to be clear that we have been working on approving minutes of our subcommittee meetings. They will also be posted on our website alongside the meeting agendas as our regular school committee meetings and school committee meeting minutes are posted. So if anyone going forward has any meeting minutes that they want to review, they will also be available on our website. We're in the process of getting those up there posted, and they'll be there posted going forward. So just to be clear with people that they will be available online moving forward. So it's always good to self-assess and reflect and learn and grow and improve. So anyway, so that brings us to school committee meeting dates, which I'm sure everyone is thrilled to talk about at 9:41 on a Monday night, about how many meetings we're going to have over the next year.
So in developing this, I generally kept the same process we had in place for this year. So we would have meetings on Monday evening, 7 o'clock, with a meeting every 3 weeks. Now, there's times where the every 3 weeks doesn't fit perfectly because of the holiday breaks or Thanksgiving, Christmas. And the one thing I did this year is I made a little adjustment to ensure that we did not have a Monday night meeting the day after February vacation, and then also the day after April vacation. April vacation being the one I think is the most important, ultimately because the election is always, the town election is generally the second Saturday of April vacation. And then to have a meeting on that Monday night is a little bit of a challenge for the person who gets elected in terms of even doing the swearing in, and, it's a little daunting to be elected on Saturday night and be at a meeting on Monday night. So we gave a little space in it to ensure that we didn't have meetings after that time. I believe it's the same number of meetings that we had this year in terms of spacing it out. So that's the proposal, is to, in essence, follow a very similar schedule to this year with some minor adjustments to ensure that we don't have a meeting after February vacation and that we don't have a meeting after April vacation. The other thing this helps with a little bit is, the last couple of years, we've always kind of been close in terms of having our budget vote 30 days prior to town meeting. But the way this lays out, by not having that meeting after February vacation, we have a meeting February 12th, and we have a meeting March 4th. So that we'd definitely, certainly be in compliance with having the budget. The goal would be to have the budget voted by that March 4th meeting. And then certainly, obviously, we can always add meetings as needed. And then it would have us returning and having our next meeting actually be August 14th. Because the way the calendar laid this year, June 5th for our last meeting is actually a little early. So even with a little bit of the revisions, next year the last meeting would be June 10th. It would be that second week, and it would be the second Monday in June instead of the first Monday in June. So that's the proposal.
Does anyone have any questions or comments or conflicts or suggestions?
I like the changes.
Just want to look at the calendar.
Yeah, so you would need a motion to vote to approve the.
So, all right, so if no one has any.
Hold on, I'm checking.
Okay.
August one is tough. All right, yeah, I guess it's okay.
I know, we have our retreat scheduled the 11th, so that weekend will be book-ended by school committee. We'll have fun at our retreat, though. We will, I promise, there will be fun.
Friday, August 11th.
Friday, August
So our
11th,
first
yeah.
meeting back, well, the retreat on the 11th and our first meeting on the 14th.
Yep.
I move to approve the 2023-2024 school committee meeting calendar as proposed this evening.
I second. We have a motion and we have a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. So we are in reports from the school committee. Is there anything that anyone would like to add or say?
I would just,
before we adjourn,
once again like to thank the members of the community that came and spoke, because it takes a lot to stand up and do your civic duty, and I'm grateful for the members of the community that are willing to do that and willing to let us know what their concerns are, because that certainly aids us in making our decisions. And I really wish I had been able to be at Multicultural Night, because that looked amazing. So, but I was headed to Ireland, so.
You had your own multicultural
You had your own multicultural thing
Yeah.
going on.
It was kind of cool.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to the staff and teachers and everybody who put on that event, because it was really fantastic. And Jam Fest was fantastic as well. And I know tonight was a lot of work for a lot of different people, so we truly appreciate everybody who put the work in, came here, presented, and helped us make these very important decisions for our students. Summer's right around the corner. I think we got, 9.5 days left of school, or 8.5 days left of school?
8.5 days.
8.5 days. So I hope everybody has a fantastic summer, gets the break and the rest that they need, and we will see you in August.
Right? Anyone else?
I'm just thankful too about, with the multicultural, how well it was put together and the support that we got from teachers, the kids, from the community. I'm so proud to be a part of that event. And just, I think that's all for now. Yeah.
I really don't have much to add. Hope everyone has a great summer. Looking forward to some time off and a successful school year next year.
Exactly. All right, I'll be brief. I also want to thank everyone that that gives so much of their time to our district, to our students, to our staff, to our teachers, our administration, to our volunteers that we have on councils and committees, for the students that are rising and using their voices. I love that we've been able to add so many more opportunities to hear the student voices over this past school year, and I'm looking forward to seeing that continue and grow as we enter into next year. I want to say congratulations to the class of 2023, and congratulate everyone on the next chapter of their adventure in life. And just really want to say thank you to everyone in this building that worked so hard to put that ceremony together. I know it was unfortunate that we had to move it inside due to the weather, but I really felt like it went off without a hitch. And it was really wonderful to see people celebrate in such an intimate setting. I think it was really a special occasion. And I wish everyone a happy end to the school year, a happy summer. Please stay safe out there and have some fun, right? Have some fun. Get out there and enjoy. So with that, I would love a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting. I know I'm supposed to say more though, right?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, meeting is adjourned at 9:49 PM.